with OGL Talk. What's up, everybody? It's your boy. I don't know how to start this. Questboard Gaming, episode 11. My name is Steve, also known as the Game Mommy. I am joined by Brandon, also known as the Game. I don't have a title for you that goes with game. AKA. You're the Game Cherry. There you go. You're the Game Cherry. I'm combining the names in a terrible way. There you go. But we are back. We had our through the mail last night and tonight, because I stacked these up back to back for some reason. That's just how they ended up being. We're talking about lots of things. You'll see from the title of this stream, and if you're watching the VOD, that this is all about Pathfinder versus D&D, the OGL and the evolution of that, some other things. I promise we'll get back to, like, you know, how to make engaging NPCs and stuff like that. We might even touch on some of that today, but we got a lot to cover. And everything. But what we were talking about actually, specifically, is what we were kind of mid conversation about is you looked up the name of the website, Brandon. What was it called? Yeah. Yeah. It's beta. It's very beta-y. Yeah. Hmm. Yep. Shocking. Ha. and but I think we were into it because if you'd had it on Paizo, you could get a discount on it on Nexus, which makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so they fixed it. And everyone's happy, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's not home run. Yeah, hold a home run, D&D Wizards, home run. Yep, that's what they did, and there's no reason to talk. If you want to give them compliments, they have a specific survey for it. Don't post about it on Twitch or TikTok or Twitter or Reddit. Just respond to the private, non-visible survey, and that's how they'll definitely take your feedback. Yeah. So I got to go on. Yeah. So they're not. But I did I did see a correction. I can't remember which TikTok account corrected it, but they did make a note about that and everything, which is the rules are indeed not copyrightable. We already know this. Anyone that's been following the OGL knows that and everything. But the expression of those rules historically are copyrightable. And by putting those pages with their language in them. They are actually doing. Now, it would have been nice if they said, hey, these rules were already non-copyrightable, but we're putting them in the Creative Commons to one, make it not a question. Like, no lawyer ever needs to get involved in it. And number two, now you can use things like action, bonus action, reaction. You can use all of our phrases, and some of those language and words still wouldn't have been copyrightable because they're too general. They're too broadly used descriptive language items. But it allows you to not ever have to worry about any of that stuff. And again, not that that's that doesn't give them. I'm not going to bake them a thing of Rice Krispie treats for it, but I will say, oh, that is nice because now there's just no way they can pursue anything from those pages, language or otherwise, and be like, oh, you used spell slots, and that's the term we use for our spell burning mechanic. And yeah, that's all under their new OGL. But like the general descriptions of them. I mean, they have paragraphs. It's not like they don't have writers. They could write up an SRD version of them and be like, yeah, you can use Bard and Rogue and all that. They're Beholder, right? And even then, don't exclude them. Just don't. There's no benefit to it. No one's gonna be like there because they can still do things outside of it because that's what they're worried about is the outside of IP kind of pursuance of these very D&D associated things, right? In that case, in the monster case specifically, and don't exclude them. Just leave them in there because they can still legally pursue if a company looks like they're trying to give appearance that they're represented or licensed by D&D while not appropriately doing that. And so they could be like, they didn't pursue us, they didn't communicate with us, and they're clearly using a ton of stuff from us, and it's reasonable that a person would perceive this as being a Dungeons and Dragons property when it's not. They can absolutely still do that, but that would require them to be kind and not try and tank every other VTT on the damn planet. Well, I think they targeted it better this time. So this is the things that I think are the biggest problem in 1.2 specifically. 1.2 specifically. Their VTT regulations, which are based off of making it, as they put it, a non-tabletop experience, which would be animating spells and things like that. And that's all to protect their VTT product that we already know that they're releasing, right? And everything so that they can be competitive in Unreal Engine 5 and no one can come close to them. And of course, they don't want to just prove it with their software. Like it could just be a very good VTT. That would obviously be very attractive. Yeah, they are competing, and they have the ability. I mean, it's first party. They have the ability to absolutely body things like Roll20 since they're using Unreal Engine. Their biggest competitor in that case is what, Foundry at that point. And they could have priced Foundry out, merged it with bought assets from first party books, and absolutely beat them in the market, classic capitalism style. But they didn't. They didn't want to. They want to legally protect themselves. And then the no D&D content behind a paywall is a little bit of an iffy thing because there's like, well, what if it's a one shot for a Patreon as opposed to our podcast? Is because the Patreon has a one shot in the thing, or like a short arc is that not allowed behind a Patreon because it's a benefit for our podcast, but our podcast is in front of paywalls on things like Spotify? Like, what does that mean? So I hope that gets torn down. And then of course the coup de grace for it is the coup de grace for it is their various legal restrictions on what they can pull, what they can't be sued for, and what you can't challenge them on if they do pull things, making us trust wizards to have judgment on what is harmful content, which they clearly do not have. Um, eh, aka a scenario was brought forth, and we're gonna hit an ad here, so we're not gonna spend much. If you're watching this on Twitch, thank you. If you watch it on the VOD, you'll just see this because I'm gonna talk through it because I don't want to give the OGL too much air on this because this is about the evolution because of that. Oh, I will. But the like real situation behind this is that Wizards is an international company, right? They publish internationally. And so the great hypothetical is, let's say I am in OGL 1.2. I've agreed to it. I publish something under it, right? And in my game, I have a queer drug addict. Now, in North America, you're probably not going to run into any things as a queer drug addict as an NPC, and he's important in America. In North America, you're not going to run into a lot of problems with that. Most of the world, you're not going to run into a lot of problems with that. But you publish it in a country where both of those things are illegal, that D&D also publishes in, and they get asked by the country to pull that content, they're going to pull your license. And you can't, per the terms of this, challenge that pulling. They don't have to justify it per the terms of the OGL 1.2. And again, beyond the lack of judgment that they've shown in a lot of their creative content and their handling of Orion Black back in 2020, 2021, and a bunch of their creators of color in those days, uh, they it's become very clear that like you can't trust WotC to have the judgment. And when I say WotC, I still pretty much just mean the executive layer and the Hasbro and the legal team that manages for both of them. Because again, most of the employees and the creatives of this hate all of this. They hate all of it. They don't want it. They don't want to. They weren't informed about it. They have no input on it, and they genuinely have argued in meetings against it, including but rumors, unconfirmed rumors, about Jeremy Crawford and the creative team in general being like, this feels gross. We don't like this. That's not why we came to work here, kind of thing. But they don't control the business side. They're there to make the playable product. You'd think you'd want to keep them happy since they make the product that people play. And again, these are not unflawed men and women and non-binary people. They have absolutely released products that are gross, and done things, but like that doesn't mean that they stand with all of the bad behavior of Wizards and Hasbro. Now, ad is done. Brandon, you said you wanted to send people in a direction. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's probably not going to be where they're owned by Hasbro, but that probably won't happen. But yeah, also you can look at D&D shorts on YouTube. They just released a lot of the quotes and information and conversations they've been having with verified WotC employees. They've got about 5 of them that they quote out and everything. It's a 17-minute video, and it sort of like shows the vibe, and it kind of shows off why Paizo went this route and why WotC went this route, and all of the rumors about the $30 subscription charge, and like what they were looking to monetize, what their goals are as far as from the tabletop side of things and the digital space side of things, and Chris Cow and all that stuff. And so I think if you go in and you look at this, it will Chimera. Our voices will make a great background for doing transcription. Yeah, I think if you go and you watch those 2 videos, you'll get a really good kind of summation of the vibe of the kind of corporate entity that is there. Now, shifting from $1 billion corporate entity to a $1 million corporate entity, let's talk about the heir apparent to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, Pathfinder and Paizo, who anyone that's probably watching this already knows that they were like a split off in the aughts from Wizards of the Coast, based off of 4th edition and some other just choices and creative decisions that they wanted to do, and how invested they were in 3rd edition and stuff like that, and 3.5, and so they created their own kind of spin-off company, or spun-off company, that has been pretty much the second biggest RPG publisher since they spun off. Pathfinder is a very popular game. It's just a drop in the bucket compared to Dungeons and Dragons. It's a much smaller base that plays it, because there aren't 75 hugely popular podcasts and streams that have combined several 100,000 people, millions, honestly, at this point, combined millions of people that listen to them in the Pathfinder system. Even though that's where Critical Role started, baby. Although they were on 1E, and I can understand them being like, we should switch to 5E for like a stream. From Pathfinder 1 to Pathfinder 5. Yeah, I think it was a very obvious choice where they were like, or to D&D 5th edition. Very obvious choice. It was like, this is going to be hard for people to understand what the hell is going on. Since they, helped invent streaming, or D&D games. Brandon's never played any Pathfinder at all. He's completely unaware of it. Brandon's a poser. His favorite version of D&D is either the original Gary Gygax version or 4th edition, and nothing in between. No, you've played Pathfinder. You played Pathfinder 1. Lots of Pathfinder 1, as you said. Mm.
It creates situations like this where wealthy investors who don't give a fuck about the community come in and want to exploit it. And so, and of course, Paizo is not without controversy in its past too. In fact, Paizo just had a really great thing come out of a really terrible thing, and that was several years ago. They had several people fired under questionable circumstances, and as a result, their workforce unionized.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something that is very praiseworthy, but it still means like, we still have to pay attention.
Yeah.
That being said, I first will should I start off with a starter set comparison? Or do we want to jump into
I want to before we're going to do the starter set comparison first, but before we do that, I do also want to add in here. A lot of people are talking about Pathfinder being the kind of heir apparent to 5th edition, and it makes sense because they're both fantasy games with good combat, like meaty combat systems. Pathfinder's a little bit even more complex than 5th edition, although not as much as a lot of people think about, because they think of the original Pathfinder, not 2e, which streamlined a lot of things. But like it's a little bit more complex, but it is still fantasy. It's epic fantasy. There's a lot of similarities and a lot of things that'll feel not the same but familiar. Like there's so many things about Pathfinder and 5th edition, which, to be clear, 5th edition is a response to 4th edition and Pathfinder. Pathfinder 2e is a response to Pathfinder and 5th edition. Like, these games have informed each other, and that becomes clear when you play them. And everything, because these are all a lot of these are TTRPG runners from similar backgrounds, and a lot of people who are at Pathfinder and founded Pathfinder worked at Wizards, right? And so all of these things kind of can inform them. But I want to be clear, a lot of people are like, go play Pathfinder. If you don't want to play D&D, play Pathfinder. But if you're looking for something that's 5th edition or simpler, Pathfinder is not necessarily the direction you would necessarily want to go, because it is more complex. It is a little bit more options and everything like that. So whereas it's the kind of obvious heir apparent, it makes a lot of sense. It uses d20s, there's saving throws, there's rolls to hit, there's multiple actions in a turn, though how they work is a little bit different and everything like that, or is different. And there's, groups and classes and species or ancestries or heritages or what have you kind of things. They're not like these all kind of make sense, but it's not like Pathfinder is a simpler game than 5th edition. It simply isn't. And
True.
so if you're looking to, if the complexity of combat and character creation was one of your least favorite things about 5th edition, Pathfinder is not necessarily the way you're going to want to go. We're more talking about it for people who were happy with multi-classing in D&D 5th edition and like coming up with interesting combos and liked the combat part, and liked the rules and stuff like that, and wanted to see lean a bit more into that. That's where Pathfinder lives.
The only caveat I'll say to that is there's a lot of people out there who I think that they are afraid of crunchier rules.
Yeah.
And I will say, I will kind of offer a small caveat in favor of, like, give them a try.
Give them a try.
Because there's a reason why the rules have become so crunchy, is that they found good and nuanced ways of handling these processes and giving more options in combat. And I think having more options in combat also does a good job of reducing a frequently caused problem in 5e, and that is all martial characters just do nothing but attack action. I think in particular, I think that's probably one of the biggest issues that I see in 5th edition, is that all martial classes just do nothing but attack action, and they become very uninteresting to play. And I do think that there, from what I've heard about Pathfinder, specifically 2e, there's a lot more interesting things that can be done.
There absolutely are. I only have heard very little about Pathfinder. Or like as far as mechanically, and immediately that was one of the big things, was that they gave martial classes a lot more options out the jump. And remember that every game starts at low level. Like you're not going to start with a level 15 character for your first time playing a game, typically, right? You're going to start low level. You're going to start at level 1 or 2. In Pathfinder 2e, I happen to know one of the little statistics is you can start at level 1, and you won't have a DM sweating figuring out how they're constantly trying to not kill their party at every turn, and everything. They kind of built some little quickies in
We'll
there.
go over that when we get into Pathbuilder here.
But yeah. So don't be afraid of the rule systems. Essentially, as far as I understand it, in 5th edition, like a regular well understood DM is used to constantly coming up with homebrew systems on the fly to figure out how to resolve requests from the players. Mm-hmm. In Pathfinder, the reason it has so many rules is it tries to eliminate that problem. There is a good argument to be made that Pathfinder is easier for new DMs, if a little bit more complicated for new players, and that 5th edition is easier for new players and takes some experience as a new DM of how to sort of on the fly figure out like what's fair and balanced so that you can kind of come up with a resolution for something. And I think that's the big key.
One of the strongest arguments that I've heard for more crunchy rule systems like Pathfinder is that because of 5e leaves so much space for rulings and not rules, it can inadvertently put DMs in an adversarial place with their players. Because if it's all just the opinion of the DM and not codified, then it could be seen as like it's pretty easy to put the DM in a place where they're regularly screwing over the players. Whereas if you have a complex rule system, the DM has
a place to go.
He has a place to go, and he also has a perspective of like, and he also has ground to stand on when making a claim.
Yeah, a GM will when they have it too. The more rule systems they are, because they're never going to be able to cover every scenario.
Of course not.
But the more rule systems there are, the more there. And you can always at a table, especially if you're new to Pathfinder, right at a table agree, hey, we're all new to Pathfinder. Let's give us all a little bit of license to screw up the systems a little bit.
Yeah.
Because nobody's like, it takes time. It took me many years of running D&D to get real comfortable with it. And and real comfortable with making in the moment judgment calls, but also real comfortable with just the rules of D&D. And I would argue there's plenty of dungeon masters, excellent dungeon masters, that have never read the DM's guide and don't know half of the rules that they're making up on the fly might already be somewhere published in D&D 5th edition. And they just don't know it because they never bothered to look because they figured out how to do it. With Pathfinder, especially because they really have the core rule book and then the dungeon, like the extended, like the advanced Dungeon Masters book, you really only have to live in a couple books and then you can really get a good idea of how to play it. And there's, again, online tools and online resources everywhere to look at it. But let's start with the starting. Let's talk about some differences here. The starter sets that.
So I'm going to bring out the D&D starter set first. This is the first starter set they released for 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the Minds of Phandelver.
Yes, I don't have the Minds of Phandelver book in here. It's up in my room because I was reading it because I was planning
on. It's a little booklet essentially.
It's a zine quality thing. It's similar in quality to this. You have a booklet with the character with the rules here. Basically, this is the SRD.
Yeah, what's in essentially. It's the corest of core rules.
I don't even know. I don't even know if there's classes in here. No, there's not even classes. So it's not even the SRD.
Yeah.
And then you have some pre-made character sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad, but it feels really bare bones. In fact, it's so bare bones that half the box is filled up with this cardboard filler.
Yeah, it really could have been in something that was essentially the size of your typical single volume graphic novel.
It could have been considerably smaller. You don't need this big box taking up all the room on your shelf. Now, the nice thing about this dirt cheap price point of $20.
Yeah, it was really meant to be like, I think honestly though, many people I know like have used it and played for it. Famously, the first several sessions of the Adventure Zone are a modification of Minds of Phandelver, and everything
Yes.
like that. And there's tons of people that have played it, but I really feel like the starter set was very much targeted at young people, and like a person being gifted. It's like, hey, you're interested in D&D. Here's a $20 price point that any parent will buy for their kid, so that
Yeah.
they can all play the game. It's very cheap video game priced, right? So like, it's a very giftable item.
Now, the Pathfinder box set is more expensive, but I don't think that it's so much more expensive that it really puts itself out of that price range. It is twice as expensive. It's $40.
Okay, yeah.
I got this particular one when I was doing a Humble Bundle package, which was $35, included the box and tons of PDFs. And I will say that Pathfinder regularly does Humble Bundle orders. So if you want to get lots of material,
Yeah.
I've gotten easily hundreds of dollars of PDFs for probably 20, 30 bucks.
Yeah, easily.
On there. It's great. Now, I'll immediately point out that like the card stock of the box feels much more durable. This is going to last longer on my shelf. And one of the cool things about it is when you first open it up, there is actually a little sign in here that says, read this first. And it gives you a layout of the contents of the box. Now,
A little bit more like a board game would, honestly.
Yes, it's a little more like a board game. One of the cool things about it is there's a bunch of these little slip cards, which tell you what you can do on your turn. They give
Very
you
board game.
They give you brief descriptions of certain things,
Mhm.
like rolling a 20 or a 1. What does that mean? What is a DC? How do you get a critical success or failure? On the back is a list of different conditions. And I think that Pathfinder relies on conditions a lot more than D&D does.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you, I mean, conditions are great, but I feel like a lot of encounters I've gotten into rarely use the conditions.
Yeah. As a commentary, as a throwback to just for briefly to that, talking about how all these majorly published games influence each other, it is very clear that the next version of D&D intends to care about conditions more from the already released beta materials on Unearthed Arcana for 1 D&D, and so they're already like acknowledging this, like, hey, conditions would be fun.
Yeah. Having your characters be more vulnerable to conditions, but also having more options to put those conditions onto your opponents. Recognizing
but Brandon, what about resistant, immune, and prone? The only conditions you need.
The problem, I think this kind of ties into what we were saying, is how in 5th edition, if you're playing a martial, everything ends up just being run up and hit it.
Yep, and that's not clever.
You have to like weigh the option of, am I going to take the time to impose a status effect, or am I going to do damage? And it's almost always a better choice to do damage.
Mm-hmm.
They have now the other things. So by the way, that starter set for D&D didn't have dice or nothing like that. So this comes with a full set of dice. You'll notice that they're all kind of color coded, and that's important. And then, of course,
that's called accessibility, baby.
You have these little plastic stands here, and we'll see what those are for in just a moment. But when I pull out one of these character sheets, I'm just pulling out the one, like one for the fighter. So it actually has like, okay, I got it kind of they're kind of nested inside of each other, so it's a little odd. But let's say we pull out the one for the fighter. I think I have there we go. So we pull out the one for the fighter. Here's the character sheet for the fighter.
Pretty.
And it has some great character art on it. It opens up. It has all the information. Now you're going to notice that this definitely is a bit more of a meaty character sheet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually really start digging into it, it's just like an enhanced version of what you've seen.
What's seen in 5th Ed character sheets.
It's not like it's changing the interface so much.
There's skills. There's the abilities up in the top left corner.
It's familiar.
Yeah.
One of the things I absolutely love about this, because it comes up so regularly, when you have a person who's never played a tabletop RPG before, and you say, "I need you to roll a d12,"
They're not going to know
like,
what that is.
what the fuck is a d12? And you'll notice on this character sheet that those dice are also color coded, and they say what dice they are,
Mm-hmm.
and those correspond directly to the real physical dice they include.
And yeah, and again, starter set, right?
Yes.
You're this is built with the intention of I've never played this game before. And so they actually built it with the intention of trying to get people to mechanically. I also noted that the character sheet in general was a bit more colorful, which means that there's a lot of color indicators to help give you a subconscious view of it. So for the colorblind, you've still got the shapes and the numbers. For those that aren't colorblind, you've got the colors so that they don't have to worry about the shapes and numbers. And you've got different sections. There'll be different hues and stuff on that. It's a better box. It's a much better box.
They have 4 different character sheets like this.
Yeah.
But they also do have an option here for if you would like to make your own. They have blank character sheets.
Yep.
The D&D one does not.
The newer D&D ones do. Okay. I'll talk a little bit about their updated versions, which may in fact have just been a response to the fact that Pathfinder released a much better starter kit, and they're like, God, we gotta up our game.
We got 2 books. Look at nice quality on these. These actually are spine. They do have a spine. Yeah. They're not zine quality.
They look like trades. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're trade quality. So you have the player's you have the beginner's heroes handbook, and you have the beginner's DM book. I believe that this actually does. Yeah, this has the adventure in it. And then another cool thing about this box set, which, it also has a map. Where did I put the map down at? It has a battle map. Love these things. The nice thing about this is that as a DM, you'll find a way to use this thing countless times. Yeah,
it's a good little dungeon map.
It's a good little dungeon map, and the thing about level, I use battle maps like this all the time in my games. I have dozens of them in a box up in my living room, and if I ever need to do a quick dirty dungeon space, I'll just grab one of those and throw it on the table, and I've never had anyone complain about that.
Not one time.
It's just such an easy way to get things going, and then at the
but
bottom.
What am I going to put on the battle map?
Well, you remember those little plastic stands earlier? We got cardboard pawns, and there's actually like 4
sheets.
4 sheets of them. Yeah, there's a considerable amount of them.
So they immediately give you everything you need to mimic what I think, in a lot of ways, people now see on Twitch streams, which is, miniatures, battle maps, and it's like, is it the 3D physical construction? No, but it gets you most of the way there for one price at a table at an introductory cost. It's such a better thing. Now, currently, my browser is locked up for something else that we're going to show, so I can't show it. D&D has released 2 starter kits since Minds of Fendelver.
Well, they've released Minds of Fendelver, they did an essential kit, and then they did another starter kit.
Yeah, and then they did another. The essential kit is a little closer to Pathfinder's, and I think the newest kit is there. I believe they're both more expensive. And so I had to buy an essentials kit because all my stuff got stolen out of my car, and I didn't realize that until I got to D&D, and then I was the GM and everything. And so fortunately I had my campaign notes, and we had digital copies of everybody's sheet, but I needed dice because all my dice were in my bag, and everything. And so I just bought that for some extra character sheets so that people could refill out physical sheets for themselves and stuff like that. So I had to buy one, but I believe that they're a bit more expensive. That was a long time ago, Chimera. That was like years and years ago. It's why I went almost completely digital with all of my materials going forward, except for like special edition books, because I'm like, I now want these in my house and nowhere else. And otherwise I'm just going to have digital stuff. But it was heartbreaking. It was about 12, 15 different books, and like a sizable amount of die, probably about 100 dice
Fuck.
and all of my expensive metal dice. So like all of my nice like $40-$50 dice sets, I had 4 of them, all of them gone. Now my guess is they thought that they were going to get like more valuable resellable things, but you know, there's some value in that. So hopefully whoever needed them real bad. So I'm not going to get mad at them. Like I was upset at the time, but it was brief because I was like, well, obviously this, and I'd already had a lot of digital versions of the materials. So it was like, I've lost the physical stuff and that makes me a little sad, but I still have the like resources. And I still had like another few hundred dice. I was just sad about the metal sets because I was real happy with them. Even though metal dice roll like garbage, but they always do. They always punish you. They're so cool looking, and that's why you don't get to roll well with them.
So a friend of mine recently gave me a set of real stone cut dice. And those, and as long as you are rolling them on like a nylon, like a game pad, they have a nice
leather or felt or something like that.
Yeah, I think the ones we have are like those like they're almost like mouse pad material.
Yeah,
is what we bring to my table. That's that seems like a good way to roll them. Anyway, the other thing
I will let you use the term chimera gangbanger. When I say it, it sounds loaded. Yes. You can say it.
One of the things that I will point out about Pathfinder that is one of the most elegant solutions that they have is their 3-action economy.
Yes, this is probably the first thing that comes up that is a difference in the combat between Pathfinder and 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
So you know, in 5th edition, you have an action, a bonus action, and your movement, and then out of combat, you have your reaction. In Pathfinder, you just have 3 actions and a reaction. That's it.
That's it.
And your actions your actions are used to make your movement to basically do anything.
Anything that you do.
If you want to attack, you attack. It's your action. They don't have double attacks. If you want to attack twice, you just make 2 attack actions. If you want to attack 3 times, do that. Now there is a penalty for that, where you take a -5 to your second attack and a -10 to any subsequent attacks after that, which matters because you can also get haste to get an additional action.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff, but it's a broader logic to, it's like I can do 3 things on a turn. If you're a martial character,
if you want to dash 3 times, if you want to move 3 times,
yeah,
you can move 3 times your movement speed in one turn. Really get going.
Yeah. If you're just running, right, you don't have to have all these abilities to get you to be able to maximize movement. Like there are abilities, I am sure, that enhance that and can make you like the monk class of 5th edition, where you can, that's also a tabaxi, and you can really stack movement up, or an Aarakocra, and you can really stack movement up. But like at the root of it, it's like it creates some obvious scenarios of, it's like I'm running away from something. I just want to run. That's all I want to do, and everything. And now you have the run way to do that. I like that system, and I also like that there are many actions, none of which I will detail here because I've not yet played Pathfinder 2e, that are in combat actions, but they're not necessarily directly combat. The one that I will call out is combat technique. Is it combat skill, combat tech? It's the learning one. Which is kind of an always go-to, where you try to learn something about the enemies that you're fighting, and then there's rules, there's like things in the enemy monster like stat blocks that are like, hey, if they do this and want to learn something about it, here you go. And how many times in our campaign, Brandon, when you were playing a person that specifically would know, and I'd have to just make a judgment call, and it's like, roll survival, and then based off that, I just have to pick some shit that you would know, or just make the judgment call if it's like, it's a typical monster type in this area, your character definitely would know this, and so feel free to look up the monster stat block.
That kind of gets to that ruling versus rules thing.
Yeah.
Where the rulings, It sounds nice because it's fast, because you don't have to look stuff up. But it can also be like, well, how shitty would it have been if me as a player in this scenario, every single time you're like, there's no rule for you to know this, so you just don't know any
You
of
just
this.
is this your favorite enemy type that you have to in the original Ranger class have to pick at the beginning of your character creation and
'Cause
then
if-
hope that I bring you in zones like that?
Guarantee you, there are DMs who pulled that shit.
There are absolutely raw DMs, rules as written DMs that do that all the time. I think Pathfinder is arguably a much better game for gaming with strangers, because again, it's more predictable on how the game is supposed to be run by the rules published than there. And that's not saying there's not still room for argument. And there's, you could easily come to a DM's table and they might, or GM's table, and that GM, they might respond with, I know the rules say this, but this, I think that's cool. So we're just going to break the rules, because that's always going to be true of every game system at any given table. That may happen. But the fact that there's so much more support for making judgment calls, because they're not judgment calls, they're systems, and support for that, I think in my mind it brings more peace of mind to the player. It brings more peace of mind to especially the new GM, once they get over the fact that no one at the table minds if you take a moment to Google something to make sure that you're doing it right. Nobody gets bothered by that. Tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people listen to several episodes of the McElroys Play the Avenger Zone, where that's like 50% of each podcast episode is them looking up how to do a thing. Those are the bonus Mabim Bam beginning Taz episodes are so trudgy to listen to because they didn't cut any of that shit out.
It's amazing.
And so it's such a giant, but like, yeah, I think Pathfinder provides, we're gonna launch into something that kind of shows a bit more of the complexities here in a bit, but it provides a lot more options, which can seem daunting, but you're not getting all of those options at level 1. And you don't have to deal with all those options. I also know that in Pathfinder, you're not supposed to let it's not based on 5 encounters a day. You're not supposed to like there's a lot of encounters that you're like, maybe your party wants to be healed up before they go to the next fight.
I've also heard that encounter building is way easier for Pathfinder.
It's supposed to be a lot more serious encounter to encounter than a lot of what is offered in the Dungeons and Dragons realm, where there's encounters that are literally meant to wear down your characters, especially as you get to later levels, because you have to.
I mean,
it's a lot more
specifically is like
quote unquote
Pathfinder
deadly.
has like a monster level thing versus D&D's CR.
Yeah, it's a lot more direct. It's almost like D&D had a version of combat that made a lot more sense, but then because that edition wasn't popular, they abandoned it for something vague and confusing. I'm not saying I liked all of the combat rules of 4th edition, but the monster rules were way better in 4th edition. They just were. They also had more statuses in 4th edition.
The problem with 4th edition is that every combat turned into an epic battle that would take forever.
Fucking
to
2 hours to do like a bandit fight. There's bandits on the road. Okay, that's the session. Even though we're definitely gonna win, it's just to go through the motions of winning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting because Pathfinder is, again, it's so similar, right? D&D, 3 actions. They're just categorized into specific types, and you can do one of each. Not including the free action, one of each, and then you have your reactions on that. Pathfinder, 3 actions, but not one of each. They're not locked into categorizations. Some things cost more than 1 action to do. Spellcasters commonly have lots of spells that
But
cost.
one of the cool things you can do with spellcasting in Pathfinder is there's no 1 spell limit per turn. If you have a spell that's 2 actions and one that's 1 action, you can cast both in the same turn.
You don't have to quicken spell it as a sorcerer and have one of them be a cantrip and all that stuff. And then and so again, it's a little bit more flexibility and a little bit broader, but it means that you get more options, and it can introduce non-combat options, because a lot of times as a melee character, you're still going to go up there and just pound on an enemy. But like,
but now you actually have the option of like move up, then take like a feint action to get them flat-footed to lower their AC, and then attack. And
yeah,
then suddenly everyone else is also benefiting from their feint, from them being flat-footed for a turn.
yeah, flat-footed for a turn, or you could, there's more than just the shove and grapple actions as the alternatives, which both are terrible choices usually, in most scenarios for combat or for melee combat users. But yeah, absolutely, something that should be considered. But you could just get a starter set. You could just do a lot of level 1 characters, and you could just work your way through a starter set. There's also, I think, it makes it a little bit of a higher value to utilize a little bit of the prepared materials out the jump, versus 5th edition, where arguably, if the DM knows how to run it, there's almost no benefit to Minds of or to using one of those starter adventures, because if the DMs run games, they're like, I can do everything in that without even thinking about it. There's nothing in that is not necessarily. And again, 5th edition is a little bit more simplified. So, and especially at like level 1, level 2, where it's like, all right, pick your thing, we'll build your characters, and then we're just going to go, and I'll just kind of tell you as you go along, kind of thing, versus Pathfinder, where it's like the adventure is going to get your players a little bit more to play with the mechanics a bit, to kind of feel out the game a bit more. Because honestly, those starter sets in 5th ed, you could all learn like one gimmick in combat and then otherwise still not really understand any of the rules, and everything, because it's meant to be a more open game. We're about to hit another ad, and then do we want to jump to this the Pathbuilder?
Let's do Pathbuilder, man.
All right, I'll slide over to that screen once we get through this ad. I'm so happy about this though, because I'm just so excited for people to play different systems, and whether it's Pathfinder / Starfinder.
I've been hearing so many people talk about how they're going to try new systems now, and it's so refreshing.
Yeah,
I've heard so many people who were like, I'm D&D only for so long, and we're like, this is like, I don't want to like give those people a hard time, because I'm just grateful that people are trying things out. But there is a bit of like, this is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket, right? Kind of thing. And so now the community's kind of like going through a hard time, and so hopefully we can, benefit from this and not have this, monolith.
In the end, it'll be better. So in the end, in the long run, it'll be better for D&D too. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not now, and not under probably Hasbro, but it'll be better for Dungeons and Dragons as well, because when eventually it's either sold to another company or redefined, or all the executives are fired, or whatever happens, right, to reform this, because we've seen reform studios all the time in the video game industry, so that's not new. But in the end, when this is done, and it might be a few years from now, it might be like 10 years from now, what it will have created is a need for Dungeons and Dragons to be a better system, to attract people back, and it will have created the desire for them to really kind of like work with things, because like on the path that Hasbro currently has them going in the gaming space, their profits are going to shrink. They're going to shrink significantly, and they're going to lose a lot of visibility, and a lot of that free podcast advertising, a lot of that free streamer advertising, a lot of that free stuff. And people are going to want to play the games that they see other people play, or the games that game store owners promote and have at a night. Like, and there'll be games like Pathfinder or PBTA games, or OSR games and stuff like that. They won't be this. And so yeah, like, it'll be good. But let's shift over now that the ad is done to the Pathbuilder 2E. Wow. Pathbuilder 2E. We're gonna shrink our chat a little bit here, and then you can see Brandon and I are still up in that corner there. And this is Pathbuilder 2E. Now,
Can you do me a solid? Can you share your screen also through Skype for me so I can look directly at that
I
instead of your face?
absolutely can, and I will.
Great.
That was one of the reasons I wanted to use Skype, and then I forgot about it, and now where is it? Where is it? There it is. Start sharing. So you should see it. Once I
There we
you
go.
see it now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, to be clear, this is what happened. I went to Pathbuilder. Well, I went to Google and typed in Pathbuilder, but pathbuilder2e.com. It led me to a landing page that's like, "Hey, do you want to download a mobile app for this, or do you just want to use the web?" And I clicked web, and then I landed on this page. So I haven't dismissed anything or changed anything. I don't know how to make characters in Pathfinder. I've never played it before. I've listened to the NADPOD episode about them exploring it a little bit, and which was not exhaustive. And there's been the occasional TikTok over the last couple of weeks that's been like, here's some minor differences between these two. But I genuinely have no idea how to do this. And so we're just kind of going through this. So the first thing it does is it lands you on this little help screen that kind of breaks down what you're going to be immediately doing. Plan out your character with the planner on the left-hand side. Like you can plan as far as you want or just your current level. Planning helps you qualify for all the character choices you will take later, which is cool because that's not something that D&D Beyond lets you do. You don't get a version of your character at later levels as you've played around things and still have your current character sheet. You have to create a second character, and you have to clone it and then fuck around with that. And so I like that. You can find dedication feats in the drop down at the top menu of the class feat choice menu. Please note that some archetype feats have the skill trait and can be found in the skill feat choice. So that's kind of like, here's QA stuff that we have. You can set your current character level. That's step 2. Step 2 is set your current character level via the button at the top of the character sheet. You can change your level up and down and see how your character will be at different levels as you plan. Much easier than D&D Beyond's. Leveling in D&D Beyond is a nightmare.
Right? It's really clumsy.
It's so clumsy. And then add equipment, weapons, gear via the tabs on the character sheet. You can find options to export your character to a PDF, printable character sheet, or share the link to your character with other people via the menu in the top left. You can view this help menu again via the menu. And so here's what I like about this is it's immediately being like, all right, here's where you're started. You got stuff up top, right? You got some stuff that might be like drop downy and could be in multiple locations that you might have to take a look at. You're going to start with your character level, and then you can add stuff to your character that's class ancestry type based, and you can do that and then export it as a PDF or share it off as a thing. And it really kind of quickly gets to, why am I here? And I want to be clear about this. I haven't signed up for shit. They didn't make me put in my email. They didn't make me create an account yet. I haven't touched any of that. They might make me do that when I want to share my character or export it as PDF. But I really like that they let me get to the tool first before I invest any potential advertising options. Because I know that if I give them my email, they're going to want to send advertisements to it. That's how they get you. So I'm going to click accept here. All right. So Fighter 1 is at the top. I've got my little name. We're gonna close this one. Nope, I don't want to delete it.
That would be just closing out your current character.
Yeah.
This is all going to change as we change
things.
Oh,
here's the character names. Okay, so I don't want to hide plan. I'm gonna leave it. I don't know what that's about, and I'll get there later. But I know that I'm starting at level 1 with 0 XP. I assume Pathfinder has a milestone version. If not, you can just make those decisions.
Yeah.
We all used to before milestones were officially a thing. What are we going to name this character, Brandon? We're just going to go. We're going to go with a fighter or a simpler class, anyways. Bemis.
M-U-S.
Bemis.
Seamus with a B.
All right. So we got a medium-sized character.
Let's start on the top left corner. I think that's where it first wants us to do.
Oh,
Is click on
ancestry, yeah.
Ancestry.
And let's go to ancestries. All right. So we got a handful of ancestries here, but this isn't all of them because we've got them broken down by common, uncommon, rare, and then all ancestries.
One of the things I really like about this is when you as a DM are telling your players, well, what do you allow at our table? You could just be like, I allow common and uncommon, or I allow all ancestries, or
I want to only play with rare ancestries because of the nature of the game I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because, of course, Pathfinder, like Dungeons and Dragons, has like a world. I can't remember its name.
Galarian is
Galarian.
It's actually a pretty great setting.
They have a ton of content for that setting. Way more than 5th edition. So much fucking content for that setting.
There's definitely, and like we mentioned earlier, there's definitely going to be some locations and regions in those worlds that
it's going to feel similar. It's going to feel a little bit like
similar, but also have some of the same problematic histories.
Oh yeah.
Like for example, there have absolutely been regions in Pathfinder's world that use things like chattel slavery.
Yep.
I don't know if they're changing that.
I would assume over time they will just. So to be clear, Pathfinder 2E, I want to say came out in 2018.
Yes.
And Pathfinder 1 was 2012. It's something like that. Maybe earlier than that. But either way, Pathfinder came out in 2018. And whereas these conversations were being had by individuals and especially marginalized communities for decades, privately at tables, corporations don't respond until it becomes public. And as we said at the top, in no way are we saying that Paizo doesn't have some gross ass shit in some of their stuff. They absolutely do. But we are comparing, I think you had the term for it. We are comparing D&D and Paizo, or Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, which is like comparing
tangerines and clementines.
Tangerines and clementines. This is not me saying this is the good RPG that doesn't do the problematic shit. It's me saying this is the most obvious RPG to go if you've been playing 5th edition with all of its problematic shit and you're like, I would like a different one.
Give me a different D&D.
Yeah. But of course, just like D&D, you can just not have the stuff in it that's gross at your table. And I highly recommend. So we've got little quick.
Let's go ahead and just start off with a goblin. By the way, you'll notice one of the things that all of these classes include, all the ancestries include, is hit points. And that's something that I think that we'll get into as we work our way through making our class and our character here. That I think that makes Pathfinder starting off a lot easier for new players and new GMs, is that at first level you get 2 sources of hit points, your ancestry and your class. So you start with quite a bit more HP than D&D.
I'm actually going to start off with an elf.
Okay.
Because unless they've heavily Asian coded their elves, we're not likely to run into anything early on with this.
Fair enough.
I know that their goblins are a lot more like the kind of creatures out of World of Warcraft. They're like a lot more like techie chaos monsters. Weirdly enough, they're a lot more like the goblins in Magic the Gathering, and everything, which is kind of funny. That's my vibe. I'm fucking here for like weird, wild little guys. But
they're more like, I would say like they're more intelligent gremlins.
Yeah, and everything, and I love that vibe. But I'm gonna go with elf just to do.
You'll notice ability boosts. So when you're creating your character, I actually don't even think you roll for stats anymore.
I think
you just get the ability boosts that you see through this. If I'm not mistaken.
You probably certainly could, but I don't know. And so we're going to just glance at some of the uncommon kind of and other things. You got cat folk, you got kitsunes, you got kobolds, you got rat folk, you got whatever the hell tengu are.
Tengu are the bird folk.
You got some super rare ones.
Oh no, sorry, not tengu are not bird folk. What is a tengu? I'm thinking of kenku.
This has got to be puppets. Have to be the puppet people, right?
Probably.
Common, additional. I don't know what they
They're
are.
constructed. The materials of your body resist ailments that assail the flesh. Yeah, it
Yeah,
sounds like a
so
puppet person.
yeah. So you got lots of things. There's a class that's are basically doll people, or an ancestry that's
There's even a
basically
just
doll
straight up
people.
dragon there. Click on the dragon. I just want to see what the dragon
Dragon.
starts off of. So you're kind of slower.
Yeah, I mean I mean they're not big dragons. They're small or medium.
Yeah.
And so my guess is this is their sort of like take on Dragonborn.
Oh, it
Um,
says third-party content right up there at the top.
there it is. There it is. Third party content. And so, but yeah, we're gonna go elf.
Okay.
And so we're gonna accept elf, an elf named Bemis, right? And so
Okay.
we've decided elf.
Let's go ahead and click that background.
Yeah, let's go to background, baby. Ooh, look at all these fucking background options. Only now has D&D been like, you know what's important? Backgrounds. But 2E's been doing it for 5 years.
So actually, this came out. I looked it up. It came out in August of 2009.
2E or original
2E.
Pathfinder?
2E.
Oh wow.
So it's actually just over 3 years old.
Or 2019? Not.
Okay, so 2019. Sorry.
You said 2009, and I was like 2009.
Sorry. 2019.
So yeah, it's a little over 3 years old. So they figured it out a while ago. They're like, class is important, right? This is kind of what you do, but also where are you from, bro? And so they've got it broken up into general, regional, campaign, which I assume is based off of
their adventure path.
Their adventure path, custom, which you have 5 specialties.
No, it's still looking at the barkeep one. It looks like you have to probably create your own.
Okay, yeah.
And then you can load them into the custom.
Yeah, so you can load one into the custom in this free builder program that you can use. But yeah, you've got lots of things. So we are going to look at barkeep and see what's in barkeep. So you can heft barrels, drink, polish steins, drinking and drinking. You worked in a bar and you learned things. Choose 2 ability boosts. One must be to Constitution or Charisma, and one is a free ability boost. You've trained in Diplomacy skill and the Alcohol lore skill. You gain the Hobnobber skill feat, which we'll get into later. I'm sure that means something. I know that feats in Pathfinder are eminently better than 5th edition.
Well, feats are everything.
They're everything. They're how you specialize your character.
When you build your character class, you're choosing feats for everything.
But now let's go to entertainer. A lot of bards are entertainers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Entertainer. I'm not saying we're going to be a bard. I'm just saying that this would be a common sort of background that a bard would take in 5th edition. Education of the arts, you learn to entertain, so a little bit of flavor text up top. Again, dexterity or charisma and a free one, so you don't have to necessarily be a charismatic entertainer. You've trained in the performance skill and theater lore skill. You gain fascinating performance skill feat. So what it seems to be is like you get a couple good skill trainings, which is not dissimilar, but not the same as proficiency. And we'll get into that little. I know that there's
one of the things
skills level in this versus along with your level versus the sort of proficiency level, like adjusting over time across
I think
your
proficiency in 5e is really simpler and it's just meant for ease of play. While in 2e, your proficiency, whenever you're proficient in a skill, it's your level plus your ability modifier plus your proficiency level. So there's like beginner, expert, master, and grandmaster, I think, or something like that. And each tier, each one gives an additional bonus.
I agree, Chimera. Fantasy Chippendales. Watch it on Hulu now.
I also like that they seem to be focusing on giving lore skills.
Yeah.
So go ahead and click on that feral child background. I want to see that one.
Well, I'm not going to click on it, but I want you to know false medium, very good background.
I love that.
That would be a background I would pick in a heartbeat for a character.
Let's look at both of them. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. We'll go to false medium first. Lot of flavor text, unlike the through and through charlatan.
There are people in this world who possess the ability to pierce the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead, allowing them to communicate with spirits. You are not one of them.
Gonna make the guy from Psych. Indeed,
But you know
right?
enough about the occult as well as cold reading tricks and various practices from local religions to scam your way into people's coin
See,
purses.
this is why backgrounds matter so much more for building a character in any system that's like more complicated like this, or even softer, lighter systems, because people don't come to when you're building a character at a table, you're not building a character that's like, I want to mechanically do these things. You're like building like a personality, and you need
Yeah.
that personality. Backgrounds are where that lives a lot of times. And in 5th ed, as it currently is, they matter a little bit more than they did in previous editions, in some of the previous editions, but they're still not very impactful. But this one's giving you skill bonuses, it's giving you ability bonuses, and everything like that.
And it really
out
does
the
a
gate.
great amount of informing your character.
Yeah, and so it's like, what am I looking for? What kind of vibe of person am I looking for? There's a background for that. If there's not, I can create a custom one. But there's
And
a
I think there's
background for
actually
that.
really clear. I believe somewhere there are really clear guides as to how creating a background works.
Yeah.
Like, what does a background get? You get 2 ability boosts, one of which has to be between 1 of 2 skills, and then you get a free boost. You get 1 skill and 1 lore knowledge, and then you get a feat.
And you get a feat. We already know that. We already know that from just clicking a few. All the backgrounds feel similar in how they mechanically apply to your character.
And so it's really consistent, and I really appreciate that a lot.
But I just want to say this. Advanced Player's Guide 204. Deceptive worship skill. But like again, to be clear also, this is not Paizo's tool. They didn't make this. This is just someone, much like how D&D Beyond, surprising everyone, was not Wizards' tool until they bought it. So many people like, it's not owned by, it seems like it's owned by Wizards already. Wow.
One of the things that Paizo has always done, which has made, I think, has really helped, was a big part of why Pathfinder was so popular in 1st edition, is that all of their content, apart from their adventure paths, are covered under their OGL, while 5th edition only covers it under their SRD.
Yeah.
So that means anything outside of anything that's not covered in the SRD, which includes quite a bit of material, like the expanded class options, the complete what's the word I'm looking for here? The new class that they made that was in Eberron, the
Artificer.
Yeah, the Artificer, not in the SRD. You are not allowed to, under the OGL, to make subclasses for the Artificer.
Yeah, and like that kind of thing, and again with the limiting of the OGL, and again D&D Beyond had developed a deal with Wizards of the Coast in order to be able to sell their books and restructure them and build them into character creators and do a bunch of stuff, but like, even in that limited and slightly more like halfway open fashion, oh, look at that, a third-party creator creates a valuable tool that only enhances the experience of your game and has people flock to it, which means more people buy stuff for your game, and then you as a company saw fit to buy it to benefit yourselves by having a bunch of data points that you can then use to guide how you fucking build your game. And none of that would have been possible under the leaked version and even the current version of the Wizards OGL and of the D&D OGL. So like, again, perfect. This is such a clear example of why that is such a like a bad business decision, not just in cruelty or ethics, just like mathematically, it's a bad business decision. But nonetheless, what else we had? I wanted to look at Feral Chair. It does. It gets us all excited about it. It's the new hot thing. Chimera's right. Like, Pathfinder 1 definitely had more connection to 3.5 and 3, which made sense because of who founded Paizo and what they had worked on and what they wanted to do at the time. And it was much more tied into that and more tied into this. 2E, as they announced themselves on their own social media feed, in theory, they didn't need to utilize the OGL for 2E. Nothing in their system required it legally. They did it so that other people could use their stuff.
Yes.
And like because again, these are the people of Pathfinder are the people that wrote the 1.0 version of the OGL. And so like they're big on please use stuff. But anyway, I wanted to do feral child. You spent your youth in the wilderness, living close to or perhaps raised by animals. Classic character start. You have a close mythical connection with these animals and gain certain abilities from them, though it's limited to your well-roundedness in mental pursuits. Choose an ability boost. It must be strength, dexterity, or constitution. So you only get one with feral child.
It must be giving you something else as a benefit then.
Yeah,
So
you are trained in nature and survival. You gain low light vision, so that's a character ability, or dark vision. Low light and dark vision are not the same, and dark vision is not the same in Pathfinder as it is in 5e. Imprecise
most ancestries, I think, only get low light vision and not true dark vision.
Yeah, and imprecise scent within a range of 30 feet, that's very good. And then the forager skill feat, which we don't know. So a little bit less in the ability boost, a little bit more in the like stuff you can do category. I am gonna go with what's a really weird one. What's a weird one? I mean, we've seen some, but I want to go with a third weird one.
Pyre tender, someone whose sole job is to manage the fires that burn bodies.
Funeral pyres. You might have lit flames, flaming biers, or been in a backwards charcoal burner using the right mixture of alchemy to act as an accelerant. However, you worship. You know nothing sends off the departed like flame. Choose 2 ability boosts. Okay, we're going with this. And one must be to dexterity or intelligence, and one must be a free ability boost. You've trained in crafting skill and the funeral lore skill. You gain alchemical crafting skill feat. Yeah, no, we're totally doing this. This is wild.
Right?
And so here's what I like about this.
Burning bodies.
Here's what I like about this. I'm going to go back to it here. Look at the 2 skills I have to boost. Like I have 2 skill boosts. One of them's just for whatever I want. But look at the 2 that I'm required to boost. Dexterity or intelligence. Yeah. Mechanically, we know, and again, Pathfinder's not exactly the same, but we know those are 2 very different skills.
Right.
They're very different. So it's not even locking me in my background to be like, oh, well, if you're a pyre tender in your background, you have to be smart and should probably be something that uses intelligence. It's like, no, you could be a dex-based character.
Really quick, I want you to click through some other ones just randomly. Don't need to go.
Okay, we're gonna go.
I have a theory I'm looking at.
Tall tale.
Notice how they say when you choose two ability boosts, one must be one or the other. One's a physical and the other is a mental. I want to see if that's consistent.
You gain the passive performance, 2 ability boosts, Constitution or Charisma. Yep.
So it's mental, physical and mental.
We'll just go down to Tax Collector.
Strength or Charisma, physical or mental.
Mental. Time Traveler, sure.
Dex or Intelligence, physical or mental.
So it's giving you the immediate like divide of physical or mental character, and then a free ability boost so that you could balance. If you wanted both, you could just have both. And then that would be your free one. If they happen to both work out. Ooh, that's very good. I like that. Good catch, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting just going through this. We're kind of naturally picking up the nature of how these particular
So now I know if I'm making one, I should always make sure if it's either or, probably to be as close to in line of the written content, have one be mental and one be physical.
Exactly.
We're going to stay a pyre builder, though, or pyre tender, because that's wild. Now let's go into classes. Oh, there's so many classes. There's so many classes.
Oh, man. Classes on class. Okay, let's click core so we can narrow it down a little bit.
Let's get to the core.
By the way, they do not have a paladin. The champion effectively replaces the paladin.
They do something. We discussed this in a previous episode where we're like, could we condense D&D classes down, feed more of their abilities into backgrounds, and simplify it so that you don't have as many class, and we went ham. We were chopping.
Yeah,
we were chopping. They didn't chop as hard, but we were like, well, really, like a rogue and a ranger and like a monk are all kind of like in the same, or like a monk and a fighter, and like you could chew it down. But we talked about changing around classes. But yeah, they have paladins are champions in. Was paladin not a core class in third edition? Was that it? They just wanted to do something that was a little less inherently religious.
I think by making it champion, they can broaden the class actually.
I agree.
Let's I want to say.
Yeah, what are we looking? Because we kind of already. That's what's great about Pathfinder is this is why it's adjacent. This is why it's the heir apparent. Without looking at any of these classes, I pretty much know what they all are, other than your conversation about paladin equals champion. After that, it's like alchemist. Okay, I know what an alchemist is. Barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, fighter, monk, ranger, rogue, sorcerer, wizard. I'm sure there will be differences, but I'm sure that they'll say this.
I want us to choose monk because I actually want to see how the monk feels.
See a monk. All right,
I want to see if the monk from Pathfinder sounds like it's not complete garbage.
You're from an ancient order in the mountains of Tibet. No,
oh no,
no. What does monk say? The strength of your fist flows through your mind and spirit. You seek perfection, honing your body, a flawless instrument, and your mind into. So it's still sort of like martial artist. You're a fierce combatant, renowned for martial arts skills and combat stances. So this is not dissimilar. Like as far as ease of transition, challenging.
I'm more interested in seeing the actual like nuts and bolts.
Yeah, dexterity, strength, 10 plus your constitution modifier, which is not tough. Related to.
Can we click on fighter? I think fighter has 12.
Fighter
10.
Yeah, I think that's fair though, because it's about your livelihood, not your like necessarily your armor or anything like that. Your stuff like that. Trained in perception makes sense.
I think the barbarian actually is the only one with 12. Click on the barbarian really quick.
Barbarian 12. Yep. Barbarian's 12 because champion should be 10. Yep. So 3 saving throws, not 6. 3 saving throws. Fortitude, reflex, will, self-explanatory. Absolutely immediately it's like, oh, okay, so how physically durable am I? How much can I dodge? What's up here in the old noggin?
Now, expert is related to their proficiency system.
Yeah, which D&D does have expertise. It's not dissimilar in language, but it is a little mechanically different.
I think expertise is actually one of like it's cool in concept, but it's a little broken in execution.
Double fortitude and
double proficiency. When you get to like medium to high levels, it just kind of takes off too hard.
Well, it's a part of the negative of not having this, like the monsters their saving throws can't scale up very high because you have a whole bunch of skills that never go anywhere.
Yeah.
And everything. And so like that's the limit. Trained in a number of skills equal to 4 plus your intelligence modifier. Brandon, how many times have you talked about wishing that the intelligence stat?
That's the thing that's from 3.5 and Pathfinder.
Yeah, that's straight up. How many times? I'm glad it's here. Trained in simple weapons First immediate benefit of a Pathfinder monk is that you can hit things with a short sword and not be violently penalized for it right out the gate. You don't have to just use fists and feet. You don't have to be a footman or a punch man. Untrained in all armor, expert in unarmored defense, same. Trained in monk class DC, again, makes sense because you're a monk. There's also this expanded section here, which has the gunslinger, which we all know from.
A lot of these are hybrid classes. Well, at least they were in previous editions. I don't know if they.
I'm guessing there's not like a lot of differences here. So like
the investigator in the previous versions was like a combination between an alchemist and a rogue.
Oh, look at that! Speaking of hybrid class. Is that a swashbuckler right there? One of the coveted classes that never quite lands in Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm really curious. Man. Like how
Thaumaturge, Summoner.
We're gonna play some Pathfinder, man.
And then class archetypes, and I don't know what class archetypes are.
Go ahead and click on one.
Click on one. Bard Wellspring prerequisites. You must have a class that casts spells.
Okay, so these
Are
are
these like advanced ones or
maybe these
subclasses?
are like kind of like prestiges. I don't know. We'll have to look into this further.
But I don't need to jump on this right now. I'm playing a level 1 character.
Let's go back to the monk. Let's do the monk.
Let's go back to the monk.
We're a monk who burns bodies.
Monk who burns bodies. I love it. Great energy. All right, so we got an elf. We got a pirate tender. We're a monk. We're at level 1. It immediately tells me to set my abilities and set my skill trainings.
So look at our skills currently. We have 2 strength, 2 dex, -1 con, +1 int, 0 wisdom, and charisma.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and hit that set abilities. But we have an AC of 17. Not bad.
Not bad. I mean, unarmored, right? Unarmored proficiency.
Now
right?
we have.
So we have to choose standard ability selection, background roots, strength.
So those are our background boosts. So it's what it's saying. We can move those around, so you can change those. I think.
Yeah, so I can, again, because we were a monk, we could flip between dexterity or intelligence.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then pick any one of these.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. You can just click standard ability selection.
Okay.
Alternative ability selection.
Now,
okay.
No, what we need to go to look at is actually, I think what you need to do is the little plus icon next to them.
Yeah.
Where you choose it. I don't know.
No, they're drop downs.
Okay. So I think this is.
Oh, because I'm a human. Because I'm a human. Normally, I would pick one of these and just take that. And then I think what's happening here is that you can take a weakness and these are sort of like my base stats, or because I'm an elf, these are sort of my base stats,
yes,
and I take a little bit of this, and then I get to pick one.
Okay.
And I can just do standard ability selection, and I can go strength, dexterity, and then just be like, I'm done.
Let's go ahead and go back to the standard though.
Yeah.
Now what we can also, so we got the class. So if you go down to class boost, click on class boost, and you'll see you can change that probably to dexterity.
Yep.
No, you can't. Okay, it's not
you
doing
can.
it. Oh, it's not. I'm not seeing it on my screen in the drop
You're not seeing the drop downs on your screen because of how the share works on it.
Okay, that's what's going on.
So the stream is seeing it, or
I've been a little confused by it.
Or is the stream seeing it? I don't know if they are. Okay, so you're not necessarily seeing this. I think I'd have to do like a full display capture.
Gotcha.
So what's happening here is that you can pick your exactly what you would expect from a drop down. Where the game said that it was limited, you only have those 2 options. Where the game said you can do anything you want, you have all of the options. And everything. And so what are we doing for, it doesn't really matter if this character is optimized.
I think we want to get our constitution up higher. We don't want to have a negative con bonus as a fighter.
Let's fix our constitution, and you can see your stats down here. You can see them down here.
And then what do you think about, do you want to be like a strength guy, or do you want to be,
let's be a Dexy boy. We've already got strength. And then class boost will also stay Dexy. And then we have these 4 free boosts that we can just check.
Strength, con, I think strength, con, dex, and wisdom.
On dex. And then, we're going to be a little bit more balanced. And then
I don't think it looks like the free boosts, you can only put 1
in each
into any given thing. So we have a really high, we got our 18 dex. That's pretty good.
That's real strong. And we've got an okay strength. And then we're kind of average everywhere else. And our charisma is our least efficient stat at 10, which makes sense because we burn bodies. That's what we do.
We burn bodies. People don't like us all that much.
We love it. Okay, so again, I don't know how this system works. And yet, here I already am. And I've kind of put this together. Finished. So now we've got all of our current stats. We can already see, I'm going to jump a little bit to the right here before we go to skill training. We can already see what our saves are. Fortitude, reflex, will, and our reflex save, which makes sense because we've got hella dex. Yep. Our reflex save is the highest, and then fortitude and will are the
only at a +1 from what we got from our ability scores. Yeah, and then everything is trained to expert, which I think it's like, so there's like trained, then expert, then
something else.
There's 2 more tiers after that, and it goes from +2 to +8 on the high end.
Yeah, and so we're doing well though. We've already got lots of base stats. Let's go to the skill training. Expert, mastery, legendary.
Yes, trained,
Um,
expert, mastered, legendary. You can see.
you can see the little like initials here, and so we have 5 skills that we can train. Now, I'm just gonna I'm not committing to this. I just want to see if I.
Clearly, we need to
It's not
get our
letting me click
lore
anything
funeral.
else.
Okay,
So
on those
I can only hit T's. I can't hit expert because I'm level
at
one.
level one.
I'm level one.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be able to expertise in anything at level one. It's not good game design. We're gonna
Well,
snooze this a little
let's
bit.
get that acrobatics going then. Of
I
course,
mean,
we
we
gotta
got
get
it.
trained.
We gotta train in that. We got arcanas. We got craftings, deception, diplomacy, intimidation, lore, funeral, which is a specialty lore, which I love
I
because it
like
means that your character is the person that knows about this, and
that.
it's not something someone else can take stat in.
I think that I really like the lore skills,
Yeah,
and I like
because
that every background seems to get one.
yeah, because
That's
that
unique.
it just means that if you're a good GM, you're paying attention to who has lore and what, and you're putting that
Right?
into your game,
Exactly.
so that they
It's
have
like
a
it
moment
gives
to
you
be like, I'm
ammunition.
the person that's smart in this,
I
and it
think
gives you an excuse as well to be like, it's common at the table. Everybody rolls for something to try and hit it, right? And there are people with lower and lesser stats, and we can talk about those skill bonuses. But separately, now I as a GM can be like, if you don't have a skill in this, I'm just going to assume your character knows the most common knowledge, but couldn't possibly know deeper knowledge about this in a way that this character does.
yeah, like this guy is gonna know shit about funerals.
Yeah. What else? What else do we want? Because we still got 4.
Let's go ahead and scroll down. We still got 4. Let's do. I think we gotta do. If we're gonna play this guy, we want to make him stealthy.
You got to be
He's got that
stealthy.
mad. He's got that mad dex. We got to do the stealth.
We got to do the stealth. We're not going to be a thief though. That's not what we're about.
I think religion.
Religion. Also,
and occultism and performance.
yeah, get him decent in occultism, solid in performance.
I have a question. Go ahead and unclick on one of them.
Yep.
And see if now that you've clicked on trained in religion, see if you can then click expert.
You
No,
can't.
you can't. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, it's literally like, no, you don't get any expertise right at this level. And I love that. Because no one needs it. And I've already got lots of stats that are good and lots of stats that are not as good. And that's fine. So we got finished for there. So our skills are set up.
Let's choose a heritage.
Let's choose a heritage.
Now, some of y'all may have noticed that we didn't choose wood elf or anything like that, and you also may have noticed that things like tieflings and half orcs weren't there, and that's where heritages come in. So you have like a bit more nuance of creating your background. So go ahead and just click on ancient elf. Let's see what that says.
Let's see what it says. In your long life, you've dabbled in many paths and many styles. Choose a class other than your own. A typical ancient elf is at least 100 years old. Though you might be younger, at GM's description, you gain the multi-class dedication feat for that class, even though you didn't meet the level requirements. Wow. You must still meet its other prerequisites to gain that feat.
That's one of the things I also like here is some more solid rules around. I always feel like 5e has
5e was built
multi-classing rules, but it's kind of messy.
It was
still.
built with the idea that advanced players would inevitably multi-class, and so it built its system to really lean into the you can play class top to bottom, but you can also play class, but you're also likely to talk about class dips and everything after you've played a few times. And multi-class, and it mechanically built itself around that. And Pathfinder is a lot more like 3rd edition, where it was like, yeah, you might multi-class, but like there's enough meat on the bone for each like class evolution that you're, because of your backgrounds, because of your ancestries, because of all these feats, that you don't need to multi-class. You can get to where you want to go otherwise.
Let's go ahead and click on rare and see what we got.
Yeah, I just want to look at rare and uncommon too. So rare is Beastkin, Draconic Scion, which I think the green is the green homebrew. Third party. And then Reflection. What is Reflection? You were created as a duplicate of another creature, intentionally or accidentally, though it might not be known to you, of your origins. That's just dope as fuck. You look like your progenitor. You gain reflection trait in addition to the traits from your ancestry. You don't need to attempt deception checks to impersonate your progenitor. Oh, that's a
unless you're
fun
interacting
character
with
thing.
people who know them personally, or you do something known to be out of character for them.
And the GM might have you roll in certain circumstances, right? Blah blah blah. You choose from the reflection feats and feats from your ancestry whenever you gain ancestry. Very good, very good. And then Beastkin.
For all you furries out there,
The blood of the beast throws through your veins. I mean, they already have kitsunes and cat folk. I think they're good. The furries are good. Uncommon, of course, ASMR. We all know what ASMR are if we played some D&D, right?
but I love that the way they've done this means that you can now have a dwarf ASMR or an elf tiefling.
Yeah, it
And
really lets you flavor up your character a lot more.
yeah, it gives you that control, and makes those meaningful choices. Let's check out Seer Elf.
Yeah, because I want to go with common because we're like it's like our
Yeah.
first character, right? And so we're not trying to overcomplicate things. You have an inborn ability to detect and understand magical phenomena. You can cast detect magic cantrip as an arcane innate spell at will, which means as many times as you want. A cantrip that is heightened to a spell level equal to half your level rounded up. In addition, you gain. I'm guessing that in detect magic in 5e, if certain things are higher spell levels, it's harder for it to detect them, and so it might grow with your level. In addition, or in 2e. In addition, you gain +1 circumstance bonus to checks to identify magic and to decipher writing of a magical nature. These skill actions typically use the arcana, nature, occultism, or religion. Occultism or religion skill. And so what's nice about this is even though it's giving me character things as a forever GM, it's giving me hints. It was like, hey, are you new to GMing? Does someone want to identify magic? They're probably using one of these 4 skills. They're probably going to use one of these 4. So if you're confused on what they should roll, pick one of those 4, and you'll be fine. You'll probably be fine. Let's do this one. Let's just do this one.
Yeah, I like it. Accept. Let's keep
Accept.
Now we get an ancestry feat.
We're gonna get into the ancestry feat, but it's about to bounce to an ad, and I don't want to limit the Twitch. But yeah, we're just cruising through. God, this is good. It's very good, and I like it.
Yeah. I can like having this being put together makes the prospect of running a character and running a campaign to me seem a lot easier.
Well, because you could give this to people and be like, and there's a mobile app. And it's like, so it's like you can build it on your laptop and then fucking have it on your phone at game, or print it out if you want to. You can send me a PDF or a copy. You can use this and to get started, because that's the barrier, right? That is the modern barrier of any other non-D&D system is there tools to make one of the hardest parts of game entry, character creation, easier for people.
Yeah, whoever put this together, it's really
because the GM is already committed. Any GM is already like, all right, I'm just gonna I'm fucking gonna get into this, right? And they're already committed. And if they've GM'd another similar level of complexity thing, they know what the game's gonna be. They know what their path is about to be. They're going to be watching YouTube videos. They're going to be maybe trying to find a podcast stream to listen to and listen to a few episodes.
Dying of exposure.
Maybe listen to some Dying of Exposure content. Maybe watch this so they too can understand the character.
Right. Me promoting our own content.
How dare you? How dare you? But yeah, they're going to go into it.
Myself.
But like players, they want to know that in session 0 they can all create a character, and everything. Very correct, Chimera. Who does want to watch Dying of Exposure content? Certainly not you, who's on the channel often. But nonetheless, and who's on the channel physically if you go back to a Nuzlocke run. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, look at our AC, by the way, at this point, Brando. Look at that AC. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean,
delicious.
We do have to remind ourselves that numbers in Pathfinder run higher.
They do,
Um,
and everything is scaled for that. But still, it makes me feel good. Seeing a 19 AC, I gotta assume that's comparative to a 15 or 16 at least as a starting
mhm.
character, and that's solid with 17 hit points at level 1. That's unheard of in D&D. You can't. You might be able to get to 17 hit points with an optimized by barbarian with a 20 in their con
So
at first level.
interesting. So barbarians in Pathfinder 2, you have a bit of a different style too.
Mhm.
They are not so able to resist damage. They have high hit points because they are the melee glass cannons.
Ah, I like that. I like that.
And so they're all more about pumping out high volumes of, from my understanding.
That's a little bit more balanced, I think.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we're back. We're back, and we're now diving into the ancestry feat, otherwise known as the meat and potatoes of this. Hey, Brandon. I'm confused, Brandon. Why don't I have a fucking 100 feats to look through? Why don't I have 100 feats to
Because
look
they
through?
have level requirements.
What? So that at the beginning of creating a character, I don't need to read a novella of feats. I can just
And
look.
these are only ancestral feats, so these are specifically to you being an elf
Elf.
ancestry.
Elf ancestry. So, like, what do we got here? We got linguistics. Language, always the most important thing in RPG.
Oh God, I
what do
always want to make language more important, but I
It's
always forget.
I figured out how to do it. We figured out how to do it on another conversation we had, where when you're starting a campaign and you're running a campaign and you're not running it in the existing world, you're homebrewing your thing. You have your character creation, and you as the GM just pocket away that the majority of the population is comprised primarily of the ancestries in Pathfinder's case of the characters that are in your game. Unless you have a particular player that really wants to play the unique one, which is fine. Which is fine. You were just like, it doesn't mean that 100% of the population can only be limited, but this allows a lot more flexibility so that you don't have a lot of GMs who really want more like common kind of fantasy species, and they don't want a party filled with like extremely like wild character concepts, but at the same time they don't want to limit their players for like playing out their fantasies, right? And everything. And so I figured that out, and it was one of the things I would have redone about Through the Mill, is that I just would have made the world primarily populated with the player character species, and then there would be a couple other either ancient, like extinct, or isolated and stuff like that. And then I don't have to keep track of like fucking 20 or like 30 different ancestries that can all speak and would have cultures. And then those cultures would have had to migrate, and how do they all exist at the same time and all that nonsense. And I would have just had to worry about like five different ancestries, which aren't the same as like localized cultures, because of course I play non-monolithic games, because that's how society is, unless I were playing some sort of like barbaric realm setting where it's like, no, this is the group that grew out of this low environment, and that's it. Anyway, you have to be at least 100 years old. Over your extensive lifespan, you've studied many languages during your thing. You can recede into old memories to become fluent in common languages, or one other language that you have access to. You know the language until you prepare again. Since this knowledge is temporary, you can't use it as a prerequisite for a permanent character option, which is a nice clarification. But I like that you can prepare different languages. Very wizard. But let's go to elven aloofness. Our favorite things about elves. As much as you might care for them, you've come to terms with the ephemeral nature of non-elves, and it makes it makes their threats feel less troublesome. If a non-elf rolls a failure on a check to coerce you using intimidation, it gets a critical failure instead. and thus can't try to coerce you for another week. That's what a critical failure does on coercion. I love that. When a non-elf attempts to demoralize you, you become temporarily immune for delay. Demoralize is one of those, I know this from like random tidbits. Demoralize is one of those things you can do in combat that affects your stats, that is an action that isn't hitting something that a martial character could do when you just want to insult your enemy. How convenient. When you're like, I'm not ready to take a -10 on my third swing, so can I demoralize them and maybe they'll be easier for the next person to fuck with? Everything. Love that. Okay, so yeah, nothing huge here. Leveled feats, key to the future. I'm glad that 1D&D is implementing them. You don't want every feat to be equally as good or bad, because then you end up having to take like the same 4 feats every time because they're optimized for a character. You want them to scale so that they can be more in tune with who you were trying to play. What's along the lines of our pyre monk, Brandon? What do you think? What's more along the lines here of this?
I kind of think I kind of actually do like elven aloofness as some person who's just like, yeah, I burned the bodies of people who.
This is all temporary.
All these people are temporary. These other people of different ancestries don't live very long.
Beautiful. Done. Elven aloofness. Class feat not selected. Again, leveled. What does this little one do?
I think that's telling you what level you can.
No, I was. This one is blue, and so I was like, "What's this up?" And it's because it's rare. Yes. Class feats. There's things like dedication feats. Can't touch them. They start at level 2. Archetype class feats. I don't even have any of those because I don't have an archetype yet.
Yeah, we have to get an archetype.
And so class feats. Oh, look, I only have to read 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 in this whole category, and I could understand what it is.
But it's also like, think about this. Like, 1, there's no subclass.
Yeah.
You are just getting your class feats, and you get to build your character how pretty much ever you want to. Now, I think there are some like feats that have prerequisites of other feats. So there's like chains, but ultimately you have a lot more flexibility. You're not choosing a class and then choosing a subclass. You're just choosing the class and then learning your way and then working your way through that thing. And this tool is pretty much to help you get there. So, let's see here. Key rush or a key strike.
Those are classic monks things.
I think. Let's see dragon stance.
Dragon stance requirement. You are unarmored, which we're going to be. You enter the stance of a dragon and make powerful leg strikes, lashing with your dragon tail, like a lashing dragon tail. You can make dragon tail attacks that deal 1d10 bludgeoning damage. This is pretty strong at level 1. They're in a brawling. They're in the brawling group and have the backswing, non-lethal, and unarmed traits. While in Dragon Stance, you can ignore the first square of difficult terrain while striding. Oh, that's cool.
That's their term for movement, is striding.
Striding. And that's nice. There's a stoked flame stance, Brando.
It calls out to us.
It calls out.
I mean, if we're a pyre burner, we gotta do all fire stuff.
Requirements, unarmored. We're there. Fire stands of fast fiery movements. You can make flashing spark attacks that deal 1d8 slashing damage. They are in the brawling group and have forceful, non-lethal, sweep, and unarmed traits. If you have access
what those do.
To the flashing, I'm wondering if once they're on there, if when we see our character sheet, it'll give us more information. I'm hoping that's the case because that would be in line with D&D Beyond and its little pop-up shit, its little modal boxes. If you have access to the flashing sparks, circle specialization, or critical specialization, in fact, you can take an alternate effect instead. If your critical strike dealt damage, the target takes 1d6 persistent fire damage. Well, in the Stoke Flame Stance, you gain +5 foot status bonus to your speed. So if you're on the ground, I guess, running. If you are striding. If you have incredible movement, increase the benefit. See, what I like about this is it sort of predicts this. Like, I bet you took monk to be kind of mobile. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'm going to tie this feat into the mobility of the monk to make it all feel more of a piece. To make you very good at things. 15-foot bonus plus 5 feet for every 4 levels beyond third. So like you can really get mobile on this.
So here I found I'm looking at Archives of Nethys for information. So that those traits, this is what they mean. So forceful. This weapon becomes more dangerous as you build momentum. When you attack with it more than once on your turn, the second attack gains a circumstance bonus to damage equal to the number of weapon damage dice, and each subsequent attack gains a circumstance bonus to damage equal to double the number of weapon damage dice. Not quite sure I understand exactly how that's supposed to work, but it basically says that when you attack more with it, you get more damage.
Yeah.
So this attack is meant to be,
encouraging.
Like it says, it's encouraging you to do it multiple times.
Comparatively, in 5th edition, monks have key points, which obviously there's some key stuff mentioned language at least wise in here. They have key points, and one of them is Flurry of Blows. And there is not a single monk that does not frequently use Flurry of Blows to give themselves extra attacks to do more damage. Mm-hmm. Now in D&D, it's all about the you get to swing more often, essentially. So you still have to roll to hit each time. And that is not exactly the same here, but it is a comparative thing that's like, if you liked being that, like, if you liked that you reskinned your monk to a pugilist or an Irish drunken boxer or something like that, right? And you like throwing blows, as many as you can, like a fast boxer would. Mm-hmm. You can do that here, but your blows just hit harder if they land, and it encourages you to take more risks on the subsequent attack penalties, which then makes you think, oh, I might want to look toward things that can make those attack penalties less bad for me, which I know exist in future feats and other things.
Check this out. Also, the sweep trait. This weapon makes wide sweeping or spinning attacks, making it easier to attack multiple enemies. When you attack with this weapon, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to your attack roll if you already attempted to attack a different target.
So that's lessening that penalty. That's lessening that penalty. I like how
it says it doesn't even say you had to have hit the other target. You just have to have attempted to hit a target. So if your first attack misses, you still get a bonus on your second attack. So
Look at that.
So I think that's pretty generous.
I think that's real generous because it's not a huge bonus, right? It's just +1, so it takes it from a -5 to a -4. But +1 at lower levels, big fucking difference, and everything. So obviously we're gonna pick this because it's the fire one. Yeah. We're going
with a very aloof dude who likes burning stuff.
Okay, so we got some stuff here.
Let's click on Flurry of Blows. I'm curious what it does.
Yeah, what does Flurry of Blows do? Make 2 unarmed strikes. If both hit the same creature, combine their damage for the purpose of resistance and weaknesses. Okay, that's good because there's bonuses to weaknesses. I know that weaknesses aren't like they take like half again as more damage or double damage. They have a flat damage bonus that they get hurt by. And so things can have differentiation of weaknesses. So they could have a weakness 3, which means they take an extra 3 damage, or they could have a weakness like 7. And what's interesting about that and why that matters is because now I, as a GM, could have higher level monsters that swing harder with their weaknesses and strengths. So if you can figure out what their best weakness is, you could fucking drill that weakness and kill them faster. And if you can figure out what their best strength is, or they could have general strength, so it gives you more options on sort of how complicated the enemy is, and then you inevitably you become a GM, you go long enough, you start customizing fucking monsters, and you start realizing that it's like, oh, this system allows me to do something that is simplified in 5e. It's more direct. If they're weak to it, they take double damage. And everything, which is a much simpler concept. But once you get past their weakness is 3, I just add 3 more damage every time they get hurt by this type of damage. I know how to add 3 more. I'm already adding numbers. So there's just another number to add. And then once you figure that out, you're like, oh, so it's not really that much harder. It's just more complex because you got to remember you're just deprogramming your D&D if you're coming from D&D. That's the only increased complexity. If D&D had that, it wouldn't have been any harder than double damage. To know, it's got weakness and a number. That's the extra damage it takes. Weakness, fire 5. All right, if you do fire damage to it, you get an extra 5. But yeah, make 2. Apply your multiple attack penalty to the strikes normally, as it has the flourish trait. You can use flurry of blows only once per turn, so it makes that really clear. Powerful fist. You know how to wield your fists as deadly weapons. The damage die for your fists increases to a 1d6 instead of a 1d4, so that explains that you're doing more than if someone else were to punch. Most people take a -2 circumstance penalty when making a lethal attack with non-lethal unarmed attacks because they find it hard to use the fist with deadly force. You don't take this penalty when making a lethal attack with your fists or any other unarmed attack. So immediately, because of the lethality, all the low modifiers, the kind of battle logic that Pathfinder has more so of, you're like, yeah, when you punch a guy, you're not likely to just kill him with a punch.
Yeah.
But if you know how to punch a guy, you can kill them with a punch.
I also one thing I've always appreciated about Pathfinder first edition, and I'm glad that they've kept in second edition, is rules about non-lethal damage. D&D just kind of says no.
D&D is basically like, if you want it to be non-lethal, just say it's non-lethal.
It doesn't have anything rules is written about it at all. It doesn't even broach the subject of non-lethal versus lethal.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, and technically in D&D, if you want to do non-lethal damage, do non-lethal something, you got to put them to sleep or something like that.
Yeah.
Choke
them out. Do a grapple. And then you're still fucking homebrewing it. You're still like, okay, if they're choked out for 30 seconds, I guess I'll use
there's not even a grapple ability that lets you subdue people by trying to choke them out. And
you're still kind of being like, okay, so you're still doing all that stuff. And then you have alchemical crafting as a bonus over here. Prerequisites: trained in crafting, which we are, because that was part of our character build. You can use the craft activity to create alchemical items. When you select this feat, you immediately add the formulas for 4 common first level alchemical items to your formulas book, which is nice downtime. What do you do while you're hanging out in the city before you go to the thing? Oh, I'm going to craft some shit. It's very, very artificer. So one of the things that, so we're done on this side. We've finished this side. We finished this side. We've got a lot of stats already. Well, again, Pathfinder higher numbers. So
17 HP at level 1.
17 HP, no shield. We know what our bonuses are. We don't need to know the actual numbers. We simply don't. We know what our bonuses are.
I like that they just kind of got rid of them.
They're in there when you're building them and setting them, but then you don't need them. And then day to day. And then one of the things that I will mention is hero points. So this is something I did learn because I listened to NADPOD. So Pathfinder doesn't have a lot of, if any, advantage, disadvantage. That's very much a 5e thing. And it's one of the best things that 5e did to simplify the system, right? If something benefits you, you get advantage. If it hurts you, you get disadvantage. If you have both, they even themselves out. You don't get double advantage, you don't get double disadvantage. Again, the 5e mentality of what's a simple concept that you could apply to tons of situations. But that means that they care less about status effects because there's only so many things that they can status you with now, because you've got this really simplified system. Pathfinder has tons of status things and effects and everything like that, but what it doesn't have is a lot of advantage and disadvantage, if any at all. I don't know if it has any, but it's not front loaded as a major rule.
I do believe it's in there somewhere, but it's just not really prevalent.
Hero points are essentially luck points. And every time you start a session, rules as written in Pathfinder 2e, everyone gets a hero point. And it's sort of like inspiration, except it's mechanically always there. And you're encouraged as a GM in the GM's guide to give out hero points about once per session to each of your players as an encouragement for them doing cool shit, right? In the same way that things are. But because they're more like luck points where you get to re-roll instead of advantage or disadvantage, it means that you get a couple like re-rolls basically through a session on average. And that's pretty good. That's pretty much going to hit you where it needs to hit you on those that are sad that they can't use like certainly it's not the same as Barbarian with Rage attacking recklessly with advantage every time, right? But I don't know if there's not a feat later on that gives you that. I don't know that yet, but but for most classes, for most people, they're going to be like, oh, cool, I can roll with, I can re-roll this because I failed and see if I get a better result. And I wanted to bring that up, but we got our class DC, we got our perception up top, and we got our initiative bonus, which is 0. And then, because initiative isn't one stat, it gets affected by different stats. There's GM's handbook about that. But like it's contextual. Like if you're surprised, it's based off your perception. But like if you're like building up to it, you might add your intimidation to initiative instead. Yeah, which is cool. I like that. I like that a lot. So we got defense since we're unarmored. We get our proficiency, we get our dex bonus, we get our base. That's how we're up at 19. I like that this tool like shows you like exactly what's adding up to your AC, something that is always confusing in D&D. So we're not going to really do a lot. We're not going to put a shield on and everything like that. Gear, we don't have any of our money. This is very D&D Beyond, right?
We have 15 gold.
We got 15 gold. We can add gear. We can add containers. We can add formulas. I'm just going to click on formulas. Lots of formulas here. This is one of the things that I'm sure as an alchemist or an architect or what happens.
So we get to add 4 level 1s. So
does it say that? Where does it say it?
Remember we got that from our alchemy crafting feat?
Oh yeah, we do. We get to add 4 level 1s from our alchemy crafting feat.
So we have to, if we go to crafting, right now this is just gear.
So
but if you go back out of this,
yeah,
and then click down on add formula,
and then
we can add
consumables.
Okay,
consumables alchemical. There we go. So this we get to add 4 of these.
We add 4 level 1 formulas.
Yeah.
So like Alchemist's Fire, obviously.
Where's Alchemist Fire?
Down. Alchemist's Fire, lesser.
I mean, yeah. And so we can add that. It tells us what it does. And 1 fire splash damage, 1 persistent fire damage, firebomb. Baby, we love to see that range ability with an Alchemist Fire, right?
Right. I just like imagine this guy like toss, like you can just flavor it however you want. He like tosses it up and then kicks the Alchemist Fire at you.
I wish this sorted a little bit better, but I understand that it's kind of alphabetical sorting.
Yeah.
And so you just gotta kind of scroll through. I'm just gonna arsenic. Why not? Sure. I'm just gonna pick 4 just so that we have the 4 that we know. Bright bomb, lesser. Love that. Blood sap, sure.
That's 4.
That's 4. And so we have these, and if you click on them, it pops up, right?
Yeah.
And everything. So we've got that for, and then of course we can add like regular gear, and that's all like the equipment that you get. There's a lot of 0 level stuff here, which I like. What does orange mean? Let's look at what orange means. Uncommon. Okay. That's nice to see color coded so that you can just be like, all right, I'm just going to start level 1. I'm not going to have any super cool shit, right? Consumables, magic items. And then they've got subcategories here. Weapon attachments. Love that energy. Consumables and stuff. And so, that's kind of the nitty gritty. A lot of that's handled in session 0 or before session 1 offline kind of thing. We got spells. We're a monk, so spells not as much, but we do have, because we don't really have innate spells other than detect magic.
Cantrip magic, yeah. It looks like it is 2 actions.
Because it's got the 2 little darts here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you do 2 actions. It tells us what it's about and everything. Tells us what we have.
And our DC is 13. right there.
Whoa, beautiful, beautiful. Love that. Rituals, we might have, depending on feats and stuff like that, more rituals or class or what have you. We got our feats. All of our feats are right here, so we can see them. Ooh, wait, I'm just going to click this print button. It'll pop up. You won't see it, but I'll see it. Oh, no, you will see it.
No, I'm
Great.
seeing it.
I just wanted to see what the print button looked like out the gate. It's taking its sweet time. It's maybe angry that I'm sharing it at the same time. We're going to click cancel. Oh, there we go. So this actually gives me just a list of my feats and kind of a simple printable text. So I could save this or have this tab open to just kind of glance at them so I don't have to click on things or touch things.
If you let's say if you're going to a Pathfinder society game and you want to print out your character sheet so you can hand it to the DM.
Yep, there you go.
Can go over it. Bam.
Actions. All right, actions. So as we discussed, lots of different actions. I'm going to point out one of the most unique actions that D&D has: administer first aid.
What do you mean, Pathfinder?
Or Pathfinder that isn't in D&D. Stabilize. We've seen this. If you're trying to stabilize a creature, so this is a medicine check in D&D. In Pathfinder, it's a little different. It has a higher higher DC check than D&D does.
And you have to treat either dying or bleeding. You can't treat both at the same
Can't treat
time.
both, right? You got weird things like climb. You've got so many descriptions for identifying stuff that you can do and that tells you what
Recall
it is.
knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, recall knowledge, repeat a spell, request, scouting, searching, so many more things. And if this was all in a printout and I had to remember what all these did, it would take me some time. I'd have to spend some serious time playing.
Something in here that's about identifying a monster.
That would be actually. I think that's the identify. No, it's not identify creature. It's recall knowledge. Okay. Recall knowledge nature. I want to say.
So it gives you a description. It says magic creatures. Arcane covers magical creatures of arcane significance.
Yeah.
So there's.
So yeah, so it's your recall knowledge action, and it takes one action.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends on the creature, as Riot says. Dungeoneering is even some.
Now you'll notice it says release there. If you go down below, and you see how it says release, and then there's and then it's like a hollowed out one. That is a free action icon, or is it that might be the reaction icon. No, the reaction icon is the swoop. It's like an arrow pointing backwards.
Yeah, no, this is the free action.
That's the free action icon.
Takes no actions.
And there are rules about how many different free actions you can do, but
you want to prepare. Is this free action, or is this an icon for something that requires another action to have already existed?
No, it's a free action.
Okay. But either way, so yeah, you get a lot of things that you can kind of do. It's certainly there. There's something that Abria Iyengar talks about when they do their character sheets and everything. And I'm not saying everyone should do this, but I think it's so helpful. Abria Iyengar makes character flowcharts. And what those flowcharts are is when they have several abilities that they want to be able to pop off or scenarios that they want to do inside of combat, they create flowcharts of sort of their action, bonus action, because D&D is very structured like that. Movement, those kinds of things. And it's like, if this happens, then go here to here. If yes, this. If no, this kind of thing to kind of simplify it. And I don't think that would be a bad thing to do on your own with a flowchart in Pathfinder, but there's so many options it would be a massive flowchart. So I think more than is that you have to give yourself to the grace that you're learning the thing. And as the GM, this is the time where the GM becomes the hero of the paying attention and kind of familiarizes themselves, maybe spends a time with the tab open.
Grab a ledge. I want to see what that one is.
Yeah, let's go to grab a ledge or grab an edge.
Grab an edge.
Trigger, you fall from an edge. Deck save. It's a deck save in D&D. I don't know if it's rules as written or it's just something that people do all the time. But your hands are not tied behind your back. Obviously, when you fall past the edge of the hand, you can try and grab it, potentially stopping your fall.
Reflex save at climb DC.
At climb DC. Amazing, right?
Now,
Amazing.
scroll back up to the very top of this because I want to point out one other thing here. You can sort by all sorts of stuff. So you can like
Class, skills, gear, basic, exploration, down. You can get, if you're in combat, let's get rid of that downtime.
Yeah,
we don't want it.
Also sort if you want to see. Oh, I want to see what all the 3 action things are. You can uncheck everything and then only see the 3 action stuff.
You can do them by names, traits, and description as well. When you're doing a search for something, so if you don't remember what this is, and again, I'm just going to hit the print tab. I'm sure this is going to be grumpy because I'm sharing, but and so you can print out a list of all of your things if you want a physical copy and you want to do it. You could even, if you set up your PDF converter right or print it to just a sortable Word document, you can design it in little flashcards if you like flashcards, right? Do what you need. But yeah, this gives us all of this sort of like stuff. Again, here's all the feats that you can do at the moment. Details about your character, of course. You can set DTs, upload character art, your languages, saved notes, and everything like that. Pretty standard stuff. You have a pet slot. Let's all be honest. We all get pets. We all get pets in the game. And then again, back to your basic gear and stuff like that.
And then we always forget we have pets.
There's the rest button. We don't need to, but we can do rest. Here's an add condition button. Hey, I'm under a condition. It's hard to do that. I'm running a combat. I can just tell my players, hey, add this condition to your character. And then that's going to be there to remind you that you're slowed or whatever the conditions are. There's many, as you can see, many conditions hidden. These aren't just bad. They're whatever. Prone, quickened, restrained, and you can add that. Let's add quickened. Additional
action at the start of each round.
Yeah, so let's add Quicken. Now, if I click on Quicken, oh, look at that. Little pop-up. Tells me exactly what it does. Once I'm out of Quickened, I can leave Quickened if it's a common thing that happens to my character, or I can just get rid of this out of that list. How fucking convenient is that? It's so good. That's so good. If you have conditions.
This is free.
And this is free. It's completely free. All right, so I've made my character. Are you a dice roller? Are you a fucking dice roller, you son of a bitch? All your core dice right there. I want to roll D12. D12. I would love to roll, and then I can reset it. Can I roll multiple dice? Doesn't look like it. So that's a little bit less heartening.
Yeah.
But there's dice rollers on Google. I'm just excited that there's anything, honestly.
Hit that D100. I want to see what the D100 looks like.
Okay, it's classic. Classic. And you just click off the dice roller. All right, this looks pretty good. I would like to save a character. I would like to log in our upgrade app. Character option, new character, save character. I don't even have to save it. I can just export it to a PDF. It's not going to, is it going to load for me in this version? We'll find out. Yeah, it does. Oh, look at that.
Makes your character sheet and everything.
And then you can download it as a PDF. Or if you've got a print PDF, which if you're using any modern OS you have, you can write that out, you can print it out, you can send it off, do it two-sided. Again, this looks a little bit loftier than the D&D 5e thing, but it's not like that much loftier. Really isn't.
You just gotta like stop for a moment and think your way through it, and you'll be like, okay, there's a lot of things that are parallels here that just are expanded upon.
It's Bemis, baby. One of the things I wanted to look at is actions. Can I just attack? Where's my attack action? Do I have an attack action? Okay, those are non like weapon attacks. So weapons, add weapon, simple. Well, I wonder where my fist would be. Unarmed. Fist, 1d4. Bam. Now, buy it? Oh, okay. Just because of the nature of that. And look at that. Just like D&D Beyond, here's your attack weapon, because I know I got fists, right?
Oh, and it asks you to spend money on it from your character's.
Yeah. So when you're buying your equipment, it builds in the prices of things. Oh, I wish D&D Beyond had that. It builds in the prices of things so that when you buy it, how easy is it to import homebrew stuff is Riot's asking. So we've seen a lot of custom. There's like custom thing. I'm guessing I have to at least have an account because remember, I haven't logged into anything. I haven't logged into a single fucking
log
thing.
in and upgrade app. And if you click on the little hamburger icon on the top left corner, custom stuff seems to be grayed out.
Yeah, and so I'm guessing that's the custom pack, ability increases, feat choices, skill increases. I don't know if they do. I'm guessing because it's so prevalent in 5e. I'm guessing D&D Beyond has a bit more custom shit in it. It also has a massive several year community that has generated stuff that has pushed them to push it more and more. And at least before it was bought by Wizards, that was one of the big things that group cared about because they loved homebrew was doing that. I don't know if that's the case now. But nonetheless, so there is definitely some customization, but I haven't even logged into that, and we're just using one of the free Pathfinder apps. I'm sure there are other apps out there that
I would say
are
Pathbuilder is probably the most well known.
that will do that stuff. But yeah, so you have your weapons. You can automatically. Can you click on the die to roll it? It's okay if you can't. I just would love it if you could.
Doesn't look like it.
Oh, and look, it does the math for you. First attack +7, second attack +3, third attack -1, and that's because I have that thing that reduces the penalty to the attack. So it's integrating all of my things. It's integrating my bonus die or my the fact that I'm a monk. So this isn't a D4, it's a D6. So it's doing all of these. G, where roll?
And
there
it brings
is.
that out. And then look, it even has the value, the modifiers up there. So you can roll that +7. So like hit +7 there. And then it's going to, you rolled a nat 1. Oh, let's try that again.
And then no, I'm gonna roll like it's the second attack.
Okay,
all right, so 11 total.
So it gives you a total at the bottom there. And then, are you going to do a third attack?
No, I'm just gonna hit damage just to see what. Okay, so it does the damage die automatically. Pretty good. And then let's do the -1 attack. Not great. Total of 2. But this is awesome. This is a great player tool right here because it's giving me the ability to do it. It's also telling me right here. If I click on, come on, baby. Yeah, it's telling me exactly what the things do down here.
That's actually one of the reasons why you're not getting those penalties. You look at the agile feat. Look at the agile feat trait.
Yeah, -4 instead of -5, -8 instead of -10.
And that's why you're not getting hit with the penalty, because the other thing, you actually have to use your action to use your fire stance.
Yeah.
If you look on the left-hand side where the fire stance list, I think it's a little bit, yeah. You'll scroll down a little bit further. Where does it live? It's still at level 1.
I don't think fire stance is here. I think it's in my feats.
No, it's in class feats.
Stoke flame stance.
And it has an action icon. So you do have to use your action to do it.
There you go. So I'd have to go into my fire stance.
It's its own unique weapon. It's its own unique attack. So let's see if it exists under feats then. Click on feats.
Here, let me jump to it.
No, you're under actions.
Oh.
Click on the feats tab. There it is. Stoked flame stance to the left.
So it's here, but now I want to use it as an action.
It doesn't look like it has a roll for it.
Fire stance.
It's stoked flame. Is what it's called.
Keep wanting to.
It's stoked.
Okay.
There it is.
So it's in there. It's in there where it belongs in the big list of actions, and so I, as a player, Let's go because this isn't quite built like D&D Beyond, where it kind of sorts out what you can do at any given turn, because it's not as streamlined as D&D Beyond, where it's like actions, bonus actions, free actions, and reactions, and there's lots of options on what you can do in kind of a combat stuff. You can do this options. It looks like there's some stuff here. Potency rune.
And I'm looking up how stances work. You just have to enter the stance, and then it persists. And
very
applies
good
to your attacks after that.
So you can customize this weapon right here. You can I can literally just like, I can put a rune on it. I can change what its attack is. I can do an attack override. I can do all the custom stuff that you could do in D&D Beyond, but just like right here in the options. And so this automatically adjusts it and makes it appear on my character sheet and everything like that. And everything. Cool. God, this is good. This is a good first time. I'm going to stop here because we've been diving on this for quite some time. For quite a bit. But we've spent roughly, I don't know, like an hour or so fucking around with this.
Bemis, the elf pyre tender monk.
Yeah, elf pyre tender monk. An aloof elf monk that uses his fists and his inner and outer flame and alchemy to inflict heat and flame on others, and is able to detect magic.
Yep.
8 spells, rituals. And that was a level 1 character, right? Obviously, if you were coming in higher, and then conveniently, now I can hide this because I know what it is. If you're not leveling your character or fucking around with things, just hide it. Now it's the whole screen. And if you are leveling your character, you can do that. And you can, this is what they were talking about, where you can like plan out your character and like their feats and everything and get them all the way down up to their like level 20. And everything. But yeah, I would be comfortable as a player spending a session 0 doing this, and I could see myself as a GM spending some time on this and maybe watching a couple YouTube videos and then getting there in the same kind of rate.
Yeah. And then also just remember to give yourself some freaking, don't give yourself so much flack for not knowing the system.
Give yourself grace to learn the system.
Yeah,
because
if you get a bunch of people at your table and you're gonna be like, hey, let's try Pathfinder, and they're all on board, then you can be like, okay, well, we're all new to this, so there's gonna be times where we need to look stuff up. So just like make sure that people understand. But then after a few sessions, before you know it, this stuff will be second nature to you.
Save character local. You can save it as the local file in your main folder. Make a new copy. Warning. Clearing site data in your browser will delete your local server or saves. That's fine. Now I'm just going to go to menu because I want to see this extends. I'm not showing this off right now because I'm going to use sign-in stuff. I'm just going to sign in with my generic email.
Yeah, we can't see it anyway.
Yeah, and so, okay. So
it does want you to pay the $6, but it's one-time payment.
Yeah, one-time payment. Is it one-time or is it a subscription?
It looks like it's a one-time payment.
Not going to pay for it yet. But again, a lot of options for something. You can export this as a JSON. I am sure. I am 100% positive there are mobile apps that are not this app that can import this app's JSON file. 100%. There's got to be.
Or at the very least, this is useful for sending your character to the app version of it. If you
can, I share this as a thing without being in a. I can. Yep. I can copy this as a link, and I can share it without being logged in. Yeah, this is a pretty good finished. This is a pretty good free tool to tool around
I love
and
that
get
you don't
there.
even have to log into it.
Well, it really doesn't. It doesn't want your information. Yeah, and Beyond, you absolutely have to log into shit. It's free, but you have to log into it. The thing that this doesn't have, obviously, that Beyond does have, right, is that if one person is willing to pay for Beyond, they share out a shit ton of materials, and that is very useful. But in reality, if you're just free charactering it and you're not buying anything, you're really limited in your D&D Beyond stuff.
And this just has all the character
This
options
has all
already.
this stuff, but you can't really campaign it and share it out amongst each other. But again,
Not like you need it though.
I'm
Everyone
going.
has it.
I'm going to go to this. Let's see. There's a reporting error thing. I want to go to not the character builder. Pathbuilder 2E price, and I'm just looking this up off camera. Does it show it on just the regular website before I click into anything? Pathbuilder 2E is a character builder, planner, and sheet for 2nd edition. Please note that the web and Android versions are separate products and require individual purchases to fully unlock. Don't love that. I mean,
At
you
least
can.
they're up front and center about it.
Yeah, FAQ. So they have an FAQ, and how to build tags work. I donated in 2016. That's an old question. Couple FAQs that they've put up, but that's pretty simple. How much does publisher? It's completely free to just play with it, right? But Pathfinder 2E cost completely free on iOS. It's also free. It says that I can upgrade and log in. Maybe that is a flat fee because it's not really front and centering its price.
Yeah.
And if that's a flat fee,
That's
fucking $6. Yeah, I'd fucking buy that and just to fuck with it.
I mean, that's what they did for Fight Club 5 for 5e on the apps that I use when I play D&D.
Right. Custom. Yeah, I'm just looking to see if I can find anything about it. Custom. What about custom classes, etc.? Custom races, weapons, armors are currently enabled. Custom classes, species, and archetypes will not be added to Pathbuilder. It's designed to be user-friendly for the majority of players, but this comes at the cost of flexibility of custom items. For custom items, custom races were possible due to their codification into the race builder and advanced race guide. Custom feats that do not affect the build, e.g. text only, may be added at some point. Okay, so yeah, and Pathbuilder is also under the OGL, but it won't be affected by this because it's not talking about wizards.
Yep.
But yeah, I think in general, this is a great free tool. It's a great tool to learn kind of how to build a character and click around on things to kind of learn the statuses. And it costs, like I said, since it costs nothing, it doesn't even collect your email address and everything like that. It's something you can all kind of play around with. And then in my mind, for a person like me, I would go to YouTube to like learn how to play Pathfinder, because that's how I learn, is like listening and watching people do it.
Called How's It Play or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a whole series of Pathfinder rules guides.
And so that's what I would do. But we have been streaming for 2 hours because we started at like 7:15, and so I think it's about time to wrap up. Next session, which I think is in a couple weeks, probably, almost certainly.
Yep.
February 6th. Next session, we will be talking not about the OG, and I say that now. Who fucking knows? But
who knows what new fucking hell?
But next session, we'll be talking a bit more broadly again about things like world building and NPCs and encounter running and things like that.
You're coming up for a library day on the 28th.
Yeah, I am coming up. So we might be talking about we'll probably be talking about some other broader systems and stuff like that, things that we got from Library Day that were really interesting that we want to bring up from specific games.
And let's also just remind people, y'all can still play 5e. You just should give Wizards your money.
Yeah, just steal their shit.
Still give Wizards your money.
Again, I've said this on streams before. I'll say it again. If you're looking for a web interface and PDFs, AnyFlip is right there for you. It's right on top. Just have an ad blocker on your browser, which you already should have anyway. And if you want like downloaded copies, there's a little site called GitHub that if you start searching for things, maybe you find some stuff. Maybe you find some stuff. Um, uh, uh, Maybe there's some stuff on that GitHub. And of course, you can dig through Reddit and other resources. But yeah, give them no money. And play 5e as much as you want, because it is not your job to do that. And if you're on like D&D TikTok or TTRPG TikTok or Beggar Talk, or you're on Twitter or you're on Reddit, you see a bunch of people being like, no, you should just walk away from this and completely. If you walk to Pathfinder, there's a litany of complaints people can make about Paizo. Right? They had to unionize, for God's sakes. But obviously, bad shit went down.
It's both like good and bad.
It's good and bad. There's litany, just
they
like
have a union, which is good. But they had to unionize, which is bad.
Which is bad. And then there's indie games. There's Morkborg. There's fucking Into the Odd. There's fucking Tales of the Loop. There's fucking so many games that you can play instead of this.
One of the ones we missed last time, I don't think we mentioned either GURPS or Fate system.
GURPS or Fate. I'm not a huge fan of GURPS or Fate, but if you want to play them, I think they're long tested systems. There's tons of content that relate to them. Neither of them are new.
Not for us, but they're out there and they are loved by the people who love them.
The Paizo is also cursed.
Really? What did Paizo? Someone saying Paizo's cursed?
Yeah. It's a Simpsons reference to the one of the Treehouse of Horror episodes. But nonetheless, we were just doing it because, again, if you like thinking about the combat in 5th edition, if you like systems and stuff like that, and you like kind of rules and like challenging things, and you like that part of D&D 5e, Paizo is absolutely going to be like right there for you, hoping you get there and giving you a very kind of similar fantasy experience that's a little bit different, but epic, levels 1 to 20, different abilities and spells and shit like that. And we didn't talk about how mechanically things work. Everything works differently as far as spell slots and other things that I'm not deeply familiar with because I haven't read any of the books. You're going to discover if you go to Low Armor Cast and you start listening to Low Armor Cast, not for the next several episodes because they're back episodes in 5th edition, but eventually you're going to learn about Pathfinder through that, because we're almost certainly going to convert to that. That'll almost inevitably be what we change over to, which I think will please one of our players greatly with options, because usually they play a caster and they're playing a melee character, and we started at level 2, so for the first like 3 levels they're like, I guess I swing. Yep. Well, fuck me, I missed. I don't have bone there. It's why Battle Master Fighter were so popular, because it finally gave fighters like shit to do. Right? It gave fighters like, oh, you can make decisions that benefit the group. Excellent. It's great. But nonetheless, for Brandon and myself, Steve, this has been Questboard Gaming. Thank you for joining us, Riot, Come Air, and anyone else that happened to be watching this. This VOD will be uploaded over to Dying of Exposure. It will finish its upload in standard def and high def tonight, because I immediately download them after the stream and then
we gotta get an 8K Ultra HD 60 frames per second.
Nope. No. Not never. It will take me so long to even capture things in 1440p.
The pores on my nose. Damn it.
Oh yeah, they do free one-shots on their RPG day for their website. Also, if you go to cons, there's people that run the games for new people. You go to game stores, you might find events.
They actually have one of my favorite one-shots of all time. It's a session that I love to run for new players, and it's called Weeby Goblins. It was first created for Pathfinder first edition.
I believe that might be what Riot's referring to there, inclling a set of one-shots where you play goblins.
It's so good. It's so good. And there's if you love it, you can play 3 more. There's 3 more of them. There's Weeby Goblins 2, 3, or there's 5 of them now. I wouldn't be surprised if they made more of them.
Yeah, and so have fun. Don't be afraid of new systems, even the ones that are touted as being more complicated than D&D. It's not like we're asking you to play Exalted. Anyway, my name's Steve. That's been Brandon. I'm gonna go learn how to play Hackslash, which no one's talked about in years, and go.
I'm gonna go look up Exalted.
Oh, baby.
Next game, Steve, you're playing Exalted with me.
No, I don't want it. But we'll see you.
Choice.
We'll see you back here in 2 weeks, Sunday the 5th for Through the Mill. Monday the 6th, or maybe not Sunday the 5th. We don't know when the next Through the Mill is, but a couple weeks for Through the Mill, and then at the very least Monday the 6th of February back here to discuss other systems and cool shit. Maybe some third-party D&D stuff. I'm still not against talking about it, especially if it makes Wizards executives mad that people buy it. They don't get any money. But nonetheless, thank you so much. You all have a good night.
Bye.